starts glowing and the film starts rolling. You wanna be knowing what you might be in for. So give the show a listen and find out what you're missing. Put yourself in position for the easy good score.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Goods, a film podcast. We're kicking open the door of the outhouse to welcome ourselves in, herald our arrival on the scene with a big special episode. I think it's number 255. Our notes are a little scattershot. Our brains are here and there. Dan, is it 255?
Yes.
And it's the Shrekisode. So
we've called it many things. Shrekisode. I liked the Shreckoning was one that was thrown out there.
And this, as with some of our other big episodes, I mean, we just, like, last week or week before last, did a bunch of movies in our, like, Pocahontas, Avatar, Ferngully tribute. But no, because one man had a vision. One man came along and said, I have something bigger. Something nigh boundless. And fresh off of our Lord of the Rings coverage, we have Will back again. Dan's brother, Will.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be back. Good to talk Shrek. Yeah, last time I was here, I think we actually watched the Grinch specials, which, again, was a multi-film extravaganza. And then before that was Lord of the Rings. And before that might have been the anime thing where I watched... So I think the last probably 3 times I've been on, we've watched over 10 films altogether, so... I'm glad to see we nearly doubled that today, but, you know, we'll get into it.
No more multi-movie extravaganzas. Your next thing is only one short, Will. That's all that you're permitted for your next episode.
It'll be like the Garfield video. I'll watch a 4-minute short, and it'll be the longest episode to date.
But because it's Shrek, and Shrek is love, Shrek is life, and it's near and dear to all of our hearts, I had to bring my brother into the mix. Welcome, Andrew.
Hey, it's good to be back. Hasn't been too long for me as well.
Now, I think you joined in January for Jimmy Neutron, right?
Yes. That was the most recent one of the birthday specials.
I don't know, dog. I've lost track of my life. I lost control of everything.
Spy Kids is most... Well, actually, no. Spy Kids is not most memorable to me. Of course, Rockafire is, but...
My largest memory from the Jimmy Neutron episode is Andrew saying that Cindy was half moist for one of the characters. What was his name? The cool guy. Nick, yeah. That line has kind of embedded itself in my brain like a thorn.
And I don't take it back.
Like an arrow in Shrek's butt, perhaps, and it has yet to come out.
I think Andrew also had the first ever usage of the term K-hole in our podcast history.
And Andrew is a man who appreciates a good Shrekisode. So tell us a little bit. I want to hear from everybody. What does a Shrekisode mean to you, or a Shreckoning? Maybe you can tell us, like, of course we're going to expound on what did the franchise mean to us individually. You don't have to dump that all here at the start. You can sprinkle it. But, like, why a Shrekisode?
I'll start. So, Shrek. It's a film that many of us have seen. I would say all 4 of the people on this call have seen. But what is a Shrekisode? So, Shrek is something of a cultural monolith for people of our generation, and it captures a certain feeling. It's not quite ironic, but it's also got a tinge of irony, and that's in line with the film itself. There's a tension between the parody and the humanism. And so for me, a Shrekisode is about unspooling the great yarn ball that is Shrek and DreamWorks animation and the long shadow it casts over the medium and movie history, but also the light
Western
shining
culture.
behind it is a great beacon that has it's so much context and so much a weight upon it that casts the shadow. That is the source behind it. And so for me, a Shrekisode is Shreckoning feels more appropriate because we are facing down the terrible, beautiful, unspeakable, just complex web of culture and film and capitalism and trash that makes up the Shrek enterprise. That's my opinion, Brian. What about you?
Well said. Yeah, so I come to this having witnessed several Shrekisodes, having even participated in a Shrekisode before. So I feel that people have, yes, quasi-ironically engaged with the movie and just the multimedia empire that Shrek has become. Because, of course, Shrek is a commentary on things which came before, and it informs things which have come after. And so it's just a meta cinematic enterprise. But Andrew had on his radio show a Shrekisode, so I definitely want to hear about that. And one of our friends who's been mentioned several times on the pod has not made an appearance yet. Paul K also did a Shrekisode that was dedicated to the Shrek video games. So I want to talk with everybody about what y'all watched. But Andrew, just tell us what was your Shrekisode?
So, of course, being a radio broadcast, it was primarily focused on music, largely from one and two, because everything else is bad. We'll get into that later. Um, but so we did that, and obviously all sorts of other spoilers that I don't want to have. I don't want to spoil things
Okay.
like the Shrek rap, of course. Just basically, like you said, Shrek covers all forms of media, and we sampled a little bit of all of that.
I thought you did a very good job of covering the corpus in the like 90 minutes that you had. Actually, it was a pretty early episode. That was back when you were just doing an hour.
Yeah, that was like episode 5 or something.
So it was important. It was important to hit early on, and I think part of that is like Jimmy Neutron, this was an animated film from 2001 and one of the very first films that you saw, right, Andrew, in theaters?
Yes, absolutely. First one or two.
And it's the 25th anniversary, everybody. A quarter century of Shrek.
A quarter Shrekchery?
Censure Shrek. Who's to say? And I guess that leads into me and what a Shrekisode means to me. And I think Shreckoning is an appropriate word because reckoning, I think, often has a negative connotation, but really it's an analytical term. We are going to reckon with Shrek, reckon with what Shrek is and what it originally was. Because as Brian and Dan brought up, certainly irony has come into the mix here. And I think if you boil down Shrek to its most essential moment, it is at the very beginning when he kicks open the outhouse door and steps out, and you hear the toilet flushing noise while All Star by Smash Mouth blares over the top. I think you can get the essence of Shrek in that 6-second clip.
I don't think that's true, though.
It kind of gets lost because of so many layers of memes and irony. People don't strip back all of those many onion layers to get back to what Shrek originally was and why it has endured. Not just its enduring impact, but why it had that impact and why people are still connected to it after all these years. And I'm looking forward to talking over that.
So, Dan, did you have a rebuttal in the moment?
Well, Will kind of addressed it afterwards. I think you can't say that Shrek is any one thing. I think we all have our own beliefs about what Shrek is. But to say that what all of Shrek is captured elegantly in the opening image I think a certain concept of Shrek is captured thusly, but I don't think part of what makes Shrek difficult to deal with is that it's, as you use the word corpus, Brian, is it's got four canonical Shrek movies, two spin-off movies, another spin-off movie in the works, a fifth movie in the works, and like TV shows and just a barrel of mediocre specials and spin-offs and characters and just all this stuff that I kind of feel like you can't really reduce Shrek into one thing.
Well said. And now I want to ask, what did we watch this week?
So I think I just gave the list of the canonical films: Shrek, Shrek 2, Shrek the Third, Shrek 4 Ever After. So those are the four Shrek films. And that's the order. Those are the first four feature length things in the Shrekiverse. And then you had Puss in Boots a year after Shrek 4. And so that is a spin-off film centered around the character introduced in Shrek 2, Puss in Boots, voiced by Antonio Banderas. Although it doesn't include Shrek or Donkey or Fiona or many of the other main characters. And then there was a long gap. Then a second Puss in Boots came out called The Last Wish. So now we have 6 movies in the Shrek universe, 4 of them official Shreks, 2 of them Puss in Boots.
So that's what you had to watch.
Right.
6 movies. But
Required viewing.
we've built it up for ourselves now that when there is more to be watched, it must be watched.
So I found a list on Letterboxd that had all of the Shrek media on Letterboxd, and I also realized it included list of other Shrek media in the description and linked to the Shrek Wiki, which I found very useful in preparation for this episode.
The Shrek Wiki featured on Andrew's radio episode. I gotta say, I hate that it's called the Shrek Wiki and not Shrekipedia.
Shrekipedia, that's what you would have called it? Well, its subtitle is Wiki Shrek, which is even worse, I think. So the Letterboxd list for Shrek has, I believe, 20 items. I'm going to pull it up now.
2 of which have not come out yet. It's got Shrek 5, which is as of yet unwatchable. And I think, the Donkey movie?
That's right. So while we were prepping for this episode, the official Donkey movie was it's a DreamWorks production. So it's a real spin-off like Puss in Boots, and it's going to have Eddie Murphy in the voice. According to the Letterboxd list, it's said to be the origin of how Donkey became Donkey. Plot TBA. So I guess we'll see.
The prequel.
Okay, it is 20 items. It's got several shorts. I mean, basically everything else is a short and of varying lengths from about 3 minutes to about a half hour.
Yeah, there were 2 half-hour specials and a bunch of shorter things.
Oh, and there's one last thing in there, and that is the pro-cam of the Broadway musical Shrek the Musical.
Did you watch that one as well, Dan?
Yeah, so I went 18 for 18 on things you can watch on the Letterboxd page. I have opinions about all of them, and most of it is that they're bad, but some of them, like, I felt like there was context I was missing, like it was connected to a TV show or something, but I did watch everything.
All right, so I watched 17 of the 18. I could not find out a satisfactory way to watch the interactive Puss in Boots Netflix film because I discontinued my Netflix account.
I have some asterisks on my 18, so we can talk about them. I didn't actually watch all of the Ghost of Lord Farquaad. I watched the second half of it. This is one of the first shorts, and I think it was initially made for like a 4D thrill ride. Oh, the one I watched featured health bars of the characters, so when something bad happened to him, the health bar changed. And it was only the second half of it. So, but I had seen that one in the past, so I felt like seeing the second half with health bars counted. My one other asterisk was Shrek the Halls. I was searching for it and I found a hit play, and then it turned out to be in some Eastern European language, I think possibly Polish. And I was like, you know what? Let's do this. Let's broaden the Shrek experience. Shrek the Halls in Polish. What about you, Will?
I watched everything that you listed, and like Brian, I missed out on the interactive. Is that even on there? Why? Either way, I missed out on the interactive Netflix. Was it a Puss in Boots or Donkey special? Whatever it was, I didn't watch that. I additionally watched. First of all, I watched all of the six canonical movies twice.
Twice.
Yeah,
Good God, man.
I watched Shrek the musical. I watched Shrek Retold, which we'll talk about later, but is essentially a cobbled together remake of Shrek between like 200 YouTubers breaking it down into little sections and reassembled into a feature length thing.
I also watched Shrek Retold.
Yeah, I also watched. There was a BBC Three. It was called like Shrek. What's it called? Something about dreams. I don't know.
Once Upon a Time. Shrek
Yeah, there
Once
you
Upon
go.
a Time.
I watched that, which was really not much of a making of. It was more of like here's a little bit about Shrek. It was like an introduction to Shrek. I also watched a production documentary that was on YouTube, like an hour. It was like a DVD special features channel that had like 20-minute parts about Shrek. I listened to Andrew's radio episode. Is there anything else I watched? Oh, I watched the first episode of the Puss in Boots series.
There's a 78 episode Netflix show about Puss in Boots. I called it quits when I learned that last night. I was like, I'm putting it away.
78 too many. No show should have 78 episodes.
This is where I stop.
Yeah, I watched the first episode and figured I got the picture. Oh, and I have a couple of caveats as well. The Ghost of Lord Farquaad, the only video I could find of it was in 240p. So it was like on my like 32-inch monitor or whatever. That's like, a quarter of an inch per pixel or something. So it was not particularly high quality. One of them, it was Puss in Boots, the Three Diablos or something like that, which is it was one of the short films. I only saw the first half because I could only find a YouTube video of the first half of the Three Diablos. And then it was the first time I was trying to stream The Ghost of Lord Farquaad. It took me to like a 2 hour and 10-minute Turkish film that had like the Cannes Film Festival opening. So I did not, well, I found it eventually, but at first I was like, I don't think this is what I'm looking for when I got 3 minutes in and they were speaking Turkish. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, Andrew, what did you manage to check off?
For me, I would say obviously all six movies. Shrek's Thriller Night. Didn't get to any of the Christmas ones on this most recent watch, unfortunately. And then the Macy's Parade. Well, the most recent Macy's Parade. I didn't watch past ones. I've obviously seen them. But the most recent one.
Well, that was the reveal of Fergus
The
and
reveal
Farquhar, right?
Yeah. So obviously that was shocking and scarring to me. But we can get into that later.
I also watched a 5-minute YouTube video of Shrek on Ice, which has multiple people dressed as Shrek ice skating with each other as they jump around and stuff like that.
Wait, it's got more than one Shrek?
Yeah, there's a man Shrek and a woman Shrek, and not Fiona, because they're both wearing Shrek's outfit and they're skating with each other.
God is dead. That's all I can say. Okay, most important thing. Did you all read the William Steig picture book upon which Shrek is extremely loosely based?
Oh, of course.
I did, of course, yeah.
Gotta.
I've been exposed to it in doctor's offices. I did not read it for this episode recently, but I know many of the lines.
Exposed to it.
You have seen Shrek the musical in person, right?
A high school performance, but yes. No, it wasn't high school. It was better than that. It was community theater. They had real makeup, at least for Shrek. The other people didn't look fantastic. But one of my best friends was Farquaad, and he, of course, looked great.
So, how do we penetrate into this?
Yeah, we can't really. We're struggling to break the ice. We didn't even bother making a notes document for this one because, I mean, the only thing we've done that I think even approaches this scale is like Coffin Joe, and it was only Gavin who went as hard as to watch like 12 or 13 movies.
What about Hanksgiving? When Dan watched every Tom Hanks movie, was it?
I might
true,
have watched comparable numbers of minutes, but this felt daunting in a way that Even the Thanksgiving didn't feel quite so daunting. A couple of things that we need to say about Shrek. So it is in cultural and industrial terms one of the most important animated films of the 21st century. Some, including me, might contend that it was one of the more destructive films of the 21st century. I could elaborate on that as we get to it. I mean, it's pretty obvious why, but we could talk more about it. And it is the third theatrically released film overall, and second CGI film overall, if I'm not mistaken, on both of those numbers, by DreamWorks. And Brian, can you tell us about DreamWorks?
Yes. So we talked not too long ago about Prince of Egypt, which was an early DreamWorks film. I think their very first was Ants or something. So Ants, it throws it off because you want to say that Shrek was the first CGI. You want to say that Prince of Egypt was the first overall, but I don't think either of those is true. I think Ants is first. I've never seen Ants. I'm going to ignore Ants again and say I think Prince of Egypt and Shrek accomplished two mission statements for DreamWorks in that Prince of Egypt was them showing that they could do a big epic musical like Disney. They say, look, we can do this too. We can have our Lion King or Hunchback or what have you, where we do it just like you. And then Shrek was them saying, and while we're at it, we can take you down a peg, Disney. DreamWorks, I guess if I don't know exactly what you were fishing for, but DreamWorks founded by Jeffrey Katzenberg in part, who had
SKG.
left Disney with a chip on his shoulder.
Right. So DreamWorks, SKG, Spielberg, Katzenberg, and who's the G again?
Geffen,
Geffen.
record executive David Geffen.
There you go. So Spielberg is very key into this. Katzenberg is the one who gets all the attention when it comes to reflecting upon Shrek. But Spielberg was extremely important. Brian and I have opined that the more you learn about anything post 1975 in blockbuster cinema, the more you realize that Spielberg shaped everything. We're living in Spielberg's image. And I'm frankly okay with that. I really enjoyed the very corny but earnest and sincere and occasionally great Disclosure Day, which I feel like I was warmer on than everyone else.
Yeah, I want to hear what Will has to say.
I was just going to say that was the last time Brian and not the last time I saw Dan in person, but it was the last time I saw Brian in person. We saw Disclosure Day, and I thought it was kind of a mess. It was a well-produced movie with some, frankly, tragic writing at points. It was just kind of all over the place. And the performances were fine, and there were good moments, but it did not come together as a whole for me. I know Dan was warmer on it, and I think Brian is probably in the same range that I am.
Yeah, I felt like Will felt that the script needed somebody else to look at it, and like the effects were good, but I thought the pacing was wacky. I was really hoping that it would start with the disclosure. I wanted it to be Arrival, basically, and then I just went and watched Arrival.
I did the same thing. The very same day I watched Arrival. And that was the first time I had seen Arrival. And I was like, wow, this is a good movie.
Spielberg's importance on Shrek is that he was long trying to adapt the William Steig children's picture book. So here's where I will parenthetical once more and speak on William Steig. So William Steig, I think that's how you pronounce it, was one of my discoveries the year that I did every Caldecott winner and honor book. I read every single one to my daughter, who I think was 3 at the time, now is 8, and she's not the last time she's going to get a shout out this episode. He had something like 3 or so honorees, and his style really stuck out. I think he's one of the great children's picture book author illustrators of the 20th century. He was born in like 1907 or something like that. He was steadily writing books for kids for many years, and I would put him in the territory of like Roald Dahl, where he's kind of got like a mean sense of humor to him and a darkness to it. and just a tremendous amount of inventiveness. And his style looks a whole lot like you would expect a New Yorker cartoon to look like, which is appropriate because he actually did do cartoons for the New Yorker. Shrek was one of his last books. He was like in his 80s when it got published. And he was something like 96 when the Shrek movie was made, just a couple years before he died. I don't know whether he ever actually saw it.
He did.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, and he has a quote where he said it was vulgar, it was disgusting, and I loved it.
Yeah, so he was like a good spirit, like slightly anarchic spirit. And Roald Dahl he made me think of. Maurice Sendak is kind of in a similar boat. He's kind of part of this wave of like taking children's pictures books away from the prim and proper Dick and Jane that, we talked about how Dr. Seuss was kind of the spearhead of making kids' books more fun and more irreverent. And he was part of that movement too. So really cool guy. And in some ways, it's almost like, it's like Mariah Carey. People just think of her as the Christmas person now. But she had an insane run as a pop singer. And if they were going to reduce Mariah Carey to the person who sang All I Want for Christmas Is You, we are limiting our perception of an artist. And I feel that way about William Steig. If you pull up his Wikipedia article, it says best known for writing the book that Shrek was based off of. But that was just like one book, and it wasn't even a particularly great or notable book. And it's got kind of this like late era edge where he's like, it never has a moment of redemption. It's like an anti-moral. It's just like Shrek is miserable and he stays miserable from start to end and finds some misery to surround himself in. And that's the whole gist of it. And a few little tokens. There's an ogre, there's a donkey, there's a princess, there's a dragon. Other than that, it really has nothing to do with Shrek the movie. So.
I mean, it just kind of feels intentionally in your face and devil may care. And like he wrote it in an afternoon. And like it took him longer than that to draw the pictures. But it's like Shrek goes out and he meets the donkey. He marries the princess. But it just has like a freewheeling. It's like beat poetry or something.
Right.
He was first published in the New Yorker in 1930, which is more than 70 years before Shrek the movie came out. So imagine like 70 years of a career before his most well-known work was adapted into a movie is kind of difficult to conceptualize.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. All right, so that's William Steig in his book. Okay, but then Spielberg had been trying to adapt this. Apparently, initially thought of it as a traditional animation, and here traditional means 2D cell animation. But eventually, it had like this really long production history. It bounced around, and then it got brought to DreamWorks when Spielberg founded DreamWorks with Jeffrey Katzenberg. And like some of the early iterations, I think John Candy was going to voice it. Like there's been a long history of Shrek voices.
And they actually recorded a lot of the movie with him.
I think that was someone else. Or was it
Chris
Candy?
Farley.
Chris Farley they recorded a lot of.
Oh man, I combined them. Who was going to be in Pocahontas? Because I may have said the wrong person. I'm pretty sure it was John Candy.
Yeah. I think you said that one right.
You definitely said Candy for Pocahontas, because I remember I just listened to that episode the other day.
Okay,
Right.
Chris Farley for Shrek. I get them confused because they're both fat comedians who died.
Mm-hmm.
As most fat comedians eventually do. Okay, so then when it got to DreamWorks, Katzenberg got involved and he kind of made it his thing. And now it became this whole entirely different beast. It wasn't just Spielberg making a project. Katzenberg was like his vendetta, his passion project for Disney in ways that we can talk about. And he got Chris Farley, who in many ways feels like the spirit animal version of Shrek. Like Shrek is his spirit animal in some ways. So it feels like a very natural fit. Kind of a fat, vulgar, high energy, over the top kind of guy. And they recorded a lot of his lines, and then he died of a drug overdose. And I don't know if they finished it. I'm guessing they didn't. They got a lot of it, but then they recast Mike Myers, who of course ended up being Shrek. But apparently they did like a whole round of recording without the famous Shrek accent. And they're like, this isn't quite working. And so then they did that. And now that's the Shrek that we ended up getting.
Yeah, so Interestingly, and this is detailed in the production, they talked about it, and so he recorded the entire thing in with an American accent because Mike Myers is American, and then they had animated about a quarter of it or rendered about a quarter of it, and then I don't remember how he detailed why it particularly came to him. I think he was talking about how the Scottish accent in particular, they kind of very easily like the sort of Scottish nature as he perceived it very easily reverberates between warmth and hostility. So as a result of that, he thought that Shrek's character embodied that sort of Scottish nature. And so what they did is they made a couple of test recordings. They had the original one in the American English and then one with a Scottish accent. And they actually showed them to Steven Spielberg, and Spielberg said that the Scottish one was better. So they recorded the whole thing, and he didn't charge him to re-record it, but they did have to re-render like, a whole quarter of the movie there. It was a sort of, I think, serendipitous because the Scottish accent is almost pivotal. It's very central to the perception of the Shrek character.
It's like when they talk about how Toy Story Buzz Lightyear was going to be Billy Crystal and not Tim Allen, and it's like you can't imagine Buzz Lightyear being anything other than the specific voice that it is. It's just like the conception of the character is built around the voice. And I'd like to get Thrash's take, our Scottish pal, someday on their perception of the Mike Myers Scottish. What do you call it? Is it brogue or something like that? Yeah,
brogue or brogue, something like that. Yeah,
Right. I've got to say that these movies lack something in geographic specificity. For instance, I mean, Cameron Diaz has the American accent, and then her quote unquote parents are these iconic British actors. And Shrek has the Scottish accent, but he seems to be totally disconnected from his ogre culture. And then when other ogres finally show up, he like knows nothing about them. But in the first movie, he has like a firmly formed understanding of what it means to be an ogre.
Shrek contains multitudes, Brian.
Well, in Shrek 3, he talks about how his dad tried to eat him. That it is a line at one point. He's like, "Yeah, my dad tried to eat me, so my dad is bad," or
Right.
something.
So he knew his parents. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the underground Shrek Society, or excuse me, Ogre Society in 4. Brian, other important context. Let's talk about Katzenberg. So I know you've read the book that described the period where Katzenberg reigned and then left.
Yeah.
So what's going on here?
Okay. So there's a great book called Disney War, tells of Eisner's reign at Disney from like 1984 to 2004. So long time, influential time. And Katzenberg and Eisner came in at the same time in 1984. They both came over from Paramount, kind of shook the studio up, led to the Disney Renaissance. And my understanding is that Eisner kind of had a power trip, like wanted to make it all about him, made himself the star of Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday nights. And Katzenberg, meanwhile, was leading specifically the animation wing. So Eisner was stirring all the pots, doing the theme park stuff, doing the live action movies, envisioning Euro Disney and Disney's America. But Katzenberg specifically was in charge of the animation wing. And so they were having big successes. And so he was thinking, well, I've got a bright future ahead of me at Disney. I'm going to be like the president of Disney. And then the guy who was the president, Frank Wells, died in a helicopter crash. And Katzenberg was thinking he was going to get that job. Eisner, who I think was the CEO, basically said, nah, I don't think you're going to get that job. And so Katzenberg departed. And this was round about like 1995.
So now Katzenberg unhappy with Disney. So did he leave pretty much right away?
I think so. I believe the first DreamWorks was 97 or something.
Okay.
Like they rolled into the DreamWorks thing pretty fast and got projects up and running.
So this was kind of an interesting thing because Disney was something of a monolith in American animation at the time. So the prospect of a well-budgeted, high artistic vision, but like really with pedigree, to make something to compete with Disney is kind of like how in the 60s, all of like the Beach Boys and the Beatles and the Stones would all talk about how the most recent record from whichever one of those bands just released their latest masterpiece gave them some new ideas and also challenged them to make some new gap, or excuse me, some new leap. So you would have like Rubber Soul, and then you'd have whatever Stones album came out. Then you have Pet Sounds. Then you have Sergeant Pepper's. So like all these things that were like building on each other and competing with each other and trying a sort of synergistic competition. And so it's easy to envision a scenario in which they would kind of not rest on their laurels and use the prospect of other competitors to raise the quality of their product so that theirs is the best show in town. It kind of did that, but it kind of worked in reverse. It was like one of them figured out a way to make money easy and cheap, and everybody followed that pattern. But again, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. So built into Shrek, then, given that it was like one of Katzenberg's signature projects at DreamWorks at the start of DreamWorks, is a sort of, you said taking them down a peg, like a revenge fantasy on Disney. And so there's a lot of biting parody and satire of both the sort of fairy tale stories that Disney tells, and then a lot of very specific Disney touchstones, both in the movies, and there's like a theme park that's like the Disney parks, and lots of other little Disney kind of concepts or icons get parodied throughout it.
That's right. So, guys, where were you? 2001. Where were you when the world stopped turning? When Shrek premiered in 2001?
What was the exact date?
Probably holiday season, probably November.
Apparently, it was May 18th was when it premiered in the United States.
Oh,
So
there you
it's, I think
go. So it was a summer blockbuster.
yeah, I was 5 years old. So there's actually Dan, you might recall. Did we see Shrek in theaters? Do you remember?
I did. I'm pretty sure that I did.
There's a decent chance I saw it in theaters. It's not one of, I think, I'm trying to think. I think my earliest theater memory is maybe seeing Harry Potter 2 or Harry Potter 1, one of the early Harry Potter movies, which was around the same time. Let's see, when did Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets film come out? It came out in 2002. I distinctly remember seeing Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets because my mom screamed in the theater when we saw it, when there was the big spider. So that is my strongest early theater memory. So I was 6 when I had just turned 7 when that one came out. So I may have seen Shrek in theaters, but if I did, I don't remember it.
Andrew, where did you first see Shrek?
I am just so certain that I either saw a Shrek standee or a Jimmy Neutron standee in a theater, and whichever one of them it was, I was seeing the other movie at the time. So right around 2001.
You said standee. What is standee?
Oh my goodness. I thought you guys watch movies or know movie culture or something.
I guess we don't know
A,
ball.
a standee is, well, I like to think of them as in like blockbusters displays for movies, but I think typically the main use of standee is when you're in a movie theater and there's a huge cardboard thing that's constructed, like nowadays they're specifically to take selfies with and stuff, but they've been a thing as long as I can remember. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
You stand a standee. No, I think
Yeah, it's
I
like
can
a-
envision it.
yeah,
It's a cardboard display that they put out in the theater for
Yeah.
a specific film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and sometimes it's like really fancy and there's like blow molds on it, like for the Simpsons movie display. I guess at that point it's not really a standee, but I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah, they had the couch and they had the big like mannequin figures that sat on the couch. Those are very prized. There are Alvin and the Chipmunks. People want those. Turbo, the DreamWorks snail. I've seen people clamor for Turbo.
I've never seen anyone clamor for Turbo.
I've heard that the people are clamoring for Turbo. In fact, why talk about Shrek when we can talk about Turbo? Just kidding.
That's DreamWorks, right?
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, the legacy that Shrek has wrought.
Yeah, the people clamor for Turbo because of Shrek. I think it's safe to say.
What's better, Turbo or Bolt?
Well, I haven't
Um,
actually seen Turbo, so
Yeah, I
I can't
have
speak
seen
on it.
Bolt, so
I've seen neither, but one is the snail and the other is the fake superhero dog. Is that correct?
that's right.
Miley Cyrus
Got
is in
Miley
it.
Cyrus in it.
Ah,
The only thing I remember about Bolt really is there's a villain who has one eye as a cat's eye, and I had written a story where there was a villain who had one eye was a cat's eye. I was like, ah, dang it.
this is not the first time. I feel like we were watching something else and you said, "Hey, this is like all of the elements of my." Oh, it was it when we saw watch Warcraft. You said there was a whole bunch of things in the Warcraft movie that were also in your books that you had written.
That's right, some story beats in the Warcraft movie. Same story, by the way, that had the cat's eye villain.
Oh, there you go.
But what were we talking about? Shrek.
Oh, Shrek. That's right.
So I do remember when I was 11 seeing Shrek in the movie theater. I remember some specific moments. I had a more visceral memory of my theater experience of Shrek 2 in 2004. But the big thing I remember seeing Shrek in the theater is when they arrive at Duloc and Shrek's coming up to the gate and the mascot is standing outside and runs in terror, but he has to obey the rules and is running through the turnstiles, like row by row through the turnstiles, the queuing like at Disneyland. And then Shrek just plows through the stanchions and is knocking him over. And everybody in the theater was laughing at that. And then the mascot, it's like beat after beat of little visual punchlines because then the mascot has this huge head on. He's a mascot of Farquaad, and then he whacks his big mascot head on the door trying to get in, and Shrek just walks past him.
One last preliminary thought on Shrek, and then we can, I think, dive into Shrek 1. Is that it now a terrible hour into this terrible podcast episode? I'm not like a super duper up on my what you'll sometimes hear called industrial history, which is usually used more in the realm of animation or like studio production. But basically, there's like dedicated and so we think of animation being released by studios, but really like okay, Walt Disney Animation Studio, for example, is actually not necessarily just one place and team animating. It could be distributed to different places. So if you pull up the first Shrek and you hit play and you get like into the little production banner at the beginning, you do get the DreamWorks logo, but you also get a little thing that says a PDI/DreamWorks production. And that is because DreamWorks either partnered with or bought or merged with or something this company called Pacific Data Images, and they were a early computer animation studio. Basically, DreamWorks absorbed them, I think is how it actually worked. And so for whatever reason, sometimes, particularly I think the early ones, I don't know if this continued later in DreamWorks' run, but they would be released as PDI/DreamWorks, which basically meant that it was animated at that specific studio. And it's right around between Shrek 3 and Shrek 4 that DreamWorks was doing significant reorganization, and they went from PDI to DreamWorks' other more in-house animation studio that I think is generally regarded as better or like had advanced beyond PDI, at least in terms of like ability to like create the images themselves, not necessarily the stories. But I think you see that leap from Shrek 3 to Shrek 4, that the animation changed a little bit and got a little bit better. But so Shrek was kind of a part of PDI for a few films and then ultimately moved to it's like Glendale or something like that, the other DreamWorks studio that produced all of the other Shrek films to date. And I think is doing Shrek 5 and Donkey.
Yeah, a couple more industrial things. First of all, originally they were trying to film Shrek like mocapped, not like solidly animation. They wanted to mocap it, but apparently, like the test footage, people did not respond well to it at all. So they moved back to, at the time, which was still fairly novel, but a more traditional 3D animation style. And also, like when you guys were talking about Pocahontas and Lion King, how you mentioned that like moving to making the Lion King was considered being on like the quote unquote B team. That was true of Shrek as well, where they would kind of, people did not like they didn't really vibe with the Shrek production at first, and they were talking. There's a few things they said that came together. I'm trying to remember. There was one, like a couple particular moments. I think it was when they got the cast together, and was when they were like, okay, hold on. When they started doing the recording, when it sort of fell into a groove. But yeah, so it was originally supposed to be mocap, which I find interesting, and originally for DreamWorks, although it became probably their most successful IP or one of their most successful IPs.
So Shrek,
Shrek 1. We're in it.
a film. It opens with All Star. We'll describe this a little bit. You listen. Okay, listen. If you're listening to this episode, you've seen Shrek. I'm declaring it.
Yeah. Occasionally we'll do a movie where I think everybody's seen it. We'll do a Toy Story. We'll do, I don't know, Nightmare Before Christmas.
If you're listening to this and haven't seen Shrek, find us. I want to hear. I want to hear. Yes, how and why are you
How?
listening to this?
What there's got to be like the Venn diagram of people who could possibly have access to this podcast and people who have seen Shrek is like the podcast circle lays within the Shrek circle, certainly.
Mhm.
But it doesn't just open with the outhouse. I think importantly, it opens with him reading the fairy tale out of a book and literally using it to wipe his ass. He tears a page out of it and wipes his ass in the outhouse. So it's immediately very explicit about what sort of story it's going to be.
And all the old Disney movies start with the book. Like
Right.
up through like Winnie the Pooh. Like the first like 30 years, that was how the movies start, is shot on a real physical book, like scanning over some of the pages.
So one thing I want to point out, I don't want to get lost, is that yes, he rips out the page and he wipes his butt, as Will said, but we still get the intro and we get the full we get the full presentation of it, and it is true. It is not undone because he wipes his butt from it. So we get this. John Powell scored it, one of my favorite composers. He scored How to Train Your Dragon as well, which is
He wrote Sneedville.
yeah, dude, he's a goat, man. He wrote some real like heart-tugging and evocative compositions for Shrek, including the one famous theme. So we get that kind of earnest intro, and then it pivots to All Star by Smash Mouth and lots of like gross out gags with Shrek in his swamp. So we have met not just what kind of story this is, but the tension at the heart of the story.
I agree, and I think the sort of the mix of the classical score with the needle drop pop numbers and like rock numbers really, you're right, it really highlights that tension.
There's layers.
Does anybody else? I have an all-star anecdote.
I have many all-star anecdotes, but you can go first.
Well, this one is it's. I remember this is so. I lived in Japan for a long time. I did not go on many dates. I went on a few, and one time I went on a date with a girl, and we were going to karaoke. And I was talking to my buddy, and I said, "What song should I sing at karaoke?" And he said, "Sing the Shrek song." And I said, "Okay." So I went on a date, and the first song I sang at this karaoke date was All Star by Smash Mouth. So I have very kind of strong, awkward memories of that date. But yeah,
Did you smash mouths?
a lady doesn't tell. I don't even remember. I think we just went on one date.
Good one. Japan and Shrek. I don't know. Like those are two things that exist. I can't
Yeah.
deny those are two things that exist.
I would go as far to say as both of those things are core to my identity, both Japan and Shrek. So when we recorded The Grinch, Brian said that he thinks that the Chuck Jones animated special of The Grinch is his most watched movie of all time. I'm pretty confident that my most watched movie of all time is Shrek. And it's either Shrek or The Emperor's New Groove, which I used to play when I taught summer school. I would play it to them. Those are the only two that are basically possible. Third is probably The Fellowship of the Ring, but like I've seen Shrek probably over 50 times. It's got to be in that realm.
I'd say Shrek is in my top 10. It's very formative on me because it was our first DVD. When we got our DVD player, we got Shrek.
So is Jungle Book also up there? Because that was your first VHS?
That was my first VHS. Good memory. Crucial on our Shrek binge to talk about Jungle Book.
When we have
But the answer is so that was the first VHS that I was ever given by my parents. It predates my memory. The first movie that I remember seeing is Lion King on my 5th birthday in the theaters. So all of that to say that probably movies that I owned home copies of, I watched many times and may not even remember. But Shrek, I remember. I remember this DVD. Like many DVDs circa 2000, 2001, 2002, it was just loaded with special features. I have watched Shrek backwards. I have watched Shrek in slow motion. It's one of the only movies that I've listened to the whole commentary track for.
Oh, there's a commentary track.
We wore this DVD through.
Wow. Okay, I need to finish All-Star anecdotes. We're still on All-Star.
I also have an All-Star anecdote after you.
Well, one of my anecdotes is that Andrew, in his radio episode, tried to open with All-Star, but in a very, very funny mishap, ends up playing the Heroes cover from Shrek 2.
Changes.
Changes cover from Shrek 2. And so like 3 times in a row, he tries to turn on All-Star, and then he's like, all right, now we finally have All-Star. And then in comes the da 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 da, da from Changes. I got a big laugh out of me when I was listening again.
I laughed out loud. I think like a lot of when you're listening to something is just like the sort of smirk and pushing air through your nose. But I audibly laughed really hard the 3rd time that you tried to play All Stars and Changes came on.
My other 2 All-Star anecdotes. One is that so there was a brief period of time when I don't know who it was, but I think it was one of the band members had control of the Smash Mouth Twitter account and would apparently be searching for references to All-Star by Smash Mouth and would angrily reply to anyone who said, man, can you imagine what would have happened to Smash Mouth if they hadn't had that hit from Shrek, that song All-Star, or like some variation of that theme? Like basically, we know that song because of Shrek. And they would say, actually, that song was already a top 10 hit before Shrek came along. But the idea of like someone in the Smash Mouth band searching out references to Smash Mouth on Twitter and getting in the replies is very funny to me. And you can still find some references to it online.
Yeah, and it wasn't a Shrek song. Originally, it was a song for Mystery Team.
Mystery Men.
No, Mystery Men, not Mystery
Yeah, if you
Team.
throw the music video on, it's all promoting Mystery Men. Clips from Mystery Men.
Which is a okay movie.
That's the movie with the skull bowling ball, right?
Yes, and also The Shoveler. It has the quote where it's, I shovel well. I shovel very well. That does not make you a superhero.
And that actually came up recently because we were talking about the literary device chiasmus, and that gets used and commented on in Mystery Men.
My last All-Star anecdote was that I really liked the song when I was in middle school. And the first time I made a list of my 100 favorite songs was back in either 2002 or 2003. And I think I had All-Star by Smash Mouth, possibly at number 4. It was like somewhere in my top 10. My favorite of all songs. We're not just talking like top 10 Shrek songs. It's like all songs in the universe. I had it up there. All right, Andrew, I don't want to cut you off from your All-Star anecdote. You have the mic.
Thank you. I didn't want to cut you off either. But my only one is one that I probably said in the radio episode. Smash Mouth came to celebrate Fairfax, which is the local like county fair, you could call it, in Fairfax County, Virginia. And they were the headlining act for the weekend. And I sat through like at least an hour concert of all their songs that nobody knows for them to end with All Star when Steve Harwell was still alive. He only did the first verse. They skipped the second verse, and the choruses, he just had the crowd sing.
So you were unhappy.
Yes, absolutely. Also, I did not pay to go. I snuck in. So I guess I got what I deserved. But
But hey, you saw them play the Fairfax
yeah,
Fair.
yeah.
Wow, they're a regular rocknoceros.
Oh, I have another all-star anecdote, which is when I saw a Simple Plan at a festival in Chiba, Japan. They played a medley of other pop punk songs, and one of the ones they played was All Star by Smash Mouth.
Huh. I've heard of that song.
They also played What's New Scooby Doo and Stacy's Mom, but What's New Scooby Doo is actually by Simple Plan, but yeah.
We'll have a Scooby-sode someday.
Mm-hmm.
My mind is percolating a Scooby-sode for perhaps October.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Smash Mouth's presence online, there was a meme before, again, he died, where this guy who was like a troll online, his name is John Hedren. He's also known as @fart because that's the handle he uses is fart. He tweeted, "I want the guy from Smash Mouth to eat 24 eggs." And he tweeted it a whole bunch of times and got replies. Oh no, he said, "I'll pay him $20 to eat 24 eggs." And then a lot of people said, "I'll pay $20 too." And eventually this got turned into an event, a charity event, where he and the Smash Mouth guy actually ate eggs live on a stage. So it did end up happening.
Importantly, Guy Fieri was the one who cooked the eggs.
Yep.
And if you don't know, Guy Fieri looks like he could be the twin of the lead singer of Smash Mouth as well, except, of course, with frosted tips.
But did they actually eat 20 eggs?
I don't know how many they ate.
So,
That's a
according
lot
to
of
the,
eggs.
the article you sent, Dan, it was like they were putting ingredients in the eggs based on audience cheers. There would be tepid cheers for normal ingredients and then really loud cheers for everything like super spicy and stuff like that. So he could not get through the eggs. So he had to pull members of the audience up to finish the eggs with him. And also it was for charity. I think the tweets were like, "I'll donate $100 to charity if you eat 24 eggs."
I don't know about you
Yeah.
guys. I could eat a lot of eggs. I really like eggs. There's a scene in Cool Hand Luke where he says, I could eat about 50 hard-boiled eggs. I couldn't do that. That would be too many. But quite a few. Maybe two dozen.
Full Gaston.
Not Gaston quantities, but I could maybe do 2 dozen.
I could probably do a dozen in a day, but 2 dozen, that's a lot of eggs.
Mm-mm.
That's too many eggs.
I'm out.
Yeah.
So
Shrek.
So the movie opens and really spends a lot of time in the beginning building up Shrek as both a misanthrope, as in someone who does not like people and company, and also as like very scary. The scary thread gets a little bit lost throughout the series from time to time, I feel. Then we get we get little seeds of the inciting incident, which are that someone known as Lord Farquaad is rounding up fairy tale creatures and other fantastical creatures, including a talking donkey, and will soon be placed into Shrek's home, which is the ugly swamp where we get that iconic all-star opening.
And the etymology of Shrek itself is Yiddish from German. So Shrek meaning fearful or horrible.
Mm-hmm. In fact, the actor who played Nosferatu in the 1920s Nosferatu was named Max Shrek, which always felt appropriate. It's like, is it German or Yiddish? Whatever language it is for.
So Yiddish is basically German.
Okay.
Like if you can speak German, you can read at least Yiddish.
My brother-in-law, Zach, who I know you've met, Brian, because he appeared on your show as Sherlock Holmes. He has shared his favorite Shrek fan theory, which is that Shrek didn't actually have a name. He was such a loner. And the only time we hear him say Shrek is a donkey says, "Oh, I like you. What's your name?" And Shrek pauses and then he thinks and he says, Shrek. And the fan theory is that he came up with this name on the spot. Like he didn't have a name before then, and then he decided that his name then was Shrek.
Interesting. I mean, you could just as easily say no one has ever asked before. Like he hasn't had to speak his name for a long time because he hasn't had to introduce himself to anybody.
Sure, I guess that's like a corollary to the theory. It's like, well, instead of isn't that he made it up on the spot, but that it's that he just forgot what it was or hasn't had to think about it or say it. But I like the idea that he just made it up right then.
But yeah, and at this point, it's like really, it's pretty well paced and there's good transitions because he chases down, like the hunters come out and he scares them and they drop a flyer and he picks up the flyer and it says, "Wanted, fairy tale things." And it cuts to the sort of concentration camp of every nursery rhyme and fairy tale you've ever seen. You get your Pinocchio and your three little bear, or was it the Goldilocks and the three bears? You get and they talk about how they're deliberately in the production stuff. They talked about how it's like, you know, obviously it's intentionally turning it on its head. Like instead of what's the name of the old Pinocchio's dad? Is it
Geppetto.
Geppetto? Yeah, instead of Geppetto like coveting Pinocchio, he's trying to sell him off and all that stuff like that. And this cage is too small, is what the baby bear says.
The three little bears have appeared at least 3 times in Shrek media. So then now we're before long, we're at the fairy tale parodies. And yes, they invade Shrek's swamp because that's where the concentration camp gets located. The quarters are Shrek's swamp. A couple things about this. One is that the tone is maybe funnier than any of the specific gags at this point. It's like calling Cinderella dead broad, get the dead broad off the table, or
Dead
sleeping
broad off the
off the-
table. It's Snow White, I guess, because it's the dwarves doing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they say, "What are we supposed to do? The bed's taken," and then there's the big bad wolf is in the bed in the grandma clothes. But yeah, I like the idea where he's like, "Oh, no, not on the table. Put her anywhere else."
Mhm. I can hear in your voice, Will, that it's baked into your brain,
Yeah, a lot of
which I can appreciate.
especially the first half of this movie, basically all of the line deliveries are completely baked in my brain. "Don't look at me. I didn't invite him." "Well, no one invited us." Coming in. He hoofed and he poofed and he signed an eviction notice.
I can hear the like glissando on the accordion before Robin Hood swings in, and that was the first time I ever experienced the surround sound in our home theater because the audio pans from the right channel to the left channel as Robin Hood swings across, and it was like, ooh, I could hear the speakers in the corners of the room. Like, ooh, that's amazing.
Brian, at one point you said in chat that you don't get Farquaad and his plan. So can you elaborate?
Okay, so I know that Farquaad, who is our villain in this film, played by John Lithgow, he hates fairy tale creatures. Okay, but wouldn't anybody who lives in a fairy tale be a fairy tale thing? I guess it's anything that's not a human.
Yeah, these are all fantastical things.
Right, I guess it's things that are tied somehow to magic, something abnormal, something paranormal.
It's a little loose though, because
Yeah.
I just, we don't know much about Farquaad as a person. And so I want to know, why is his hatred there? And like, what is he trying to accomplish? He says he'll have a perfect world if there's not these creatures in it. So I think what they were going for was some kind of like genocide-y thing. It's like they didn't want to go there totally, and the result is that it ends up muddled.
Well, I mean, I kind of see what you're saying, but I also feel like it conveyed successfully for me this idea that Farquaad is insistent on like eradicating grossness and strangeness because he wants his kingdom that is going to be his kingdom. This whole thing is kind of confusing too.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So two things. One, Farquaad is 3 feet tall, and how did that come about? And like he's got some abnormalities of his own, which I think is also a whole commentary on like maybe the Nazi thing. I don't know.
He's Hitler. He's fairy tale Hitler, maybe.
Yeah, it's like Schicklgruber who maybe had Jewish heritage, or I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to say exactly because
we don't need to go further into the Nazi thing here. That's okay.
It's not hammered on the head. But what was my point? What was the last thing you said, Will?
I was saying, is he actually king?
Oh, yes. That was what I wanted to comment on because he's Lord Farquaad. They don't say Prince Farquaad. He's Lord Farquaad. He's got a castle, and somehow by marrying a princess, he's going to become king. So what does that law say? I need Thelonious or somebody to read me this law because that doesn't make any sense at all.
I don't think Thelonious can read.
Pick number three,
my lord.
Like, okay, maybe if he's like, he's like Belle, a commoner, and he's gonna marry somebody who is a royal, and then eventually become king, but that's not how they talk about it. They talk about it that the rule says if you marry a princess, you can be king. Well, who's king now?
This is, I would say these are fairy tale. You're trying to make real world observations into fairy tale logic, and while I understand the observations, these are not what I would call first viewing observations. These are, I have digested Shrek so many times, and now I'm trying to, I'm like, okay, hold on, but what actually was Farquaad's deal? Another question I've always had is what information is he torturing the gingerbread man for? He's just like asking where somebody is. Do you know the Muffin Man? She's married to but we never get who is this lady who is married to the Muffin Man. Obviously, the point was to make it like a riff on the classic rhyme. There are these plot tendrils that are kind of there for punchlines. I don't think developing them would have been a service to the film because I think it's pretty tightly paced and trying to expound more on the lore of Lord Farquaad might have slowed things down a bit.
I've just always suspected that the earlier drafts of the film script were longer and had more Farquaad lore.
Yeah, it feels like something could have been scrubbed out there. He decides he needs to marry a princess, like Brian said. Everything is just this little riff. It's like a little parody. So the thing where he's going to choose a princess to marry is like a dating show where it's like from the 70s. They don't really do these anymore, I don't think. Maybe they do. I don't know. I guess it's like now it's Love is Blind or whatever.
There's but like I've seen there was a streaming one. It was called Host or Kick or something like that, or Love and Host, and it was like streamers who would do it, and it was like a competitive dating type of thing. So they still exist. But not in the same capacity, not the same style.
They're different. But like an announcer introducing the 3 potential princesses that Farquaad could date, and he picks Fiona, but rather than go rescue Fiona himself, because Fiona is locked in a tower, he decides he will select a champion to go rescue Fiona for him. And the tournament to determine the champion coincides with Shrek's arrival at Lord Farquaad's castle. Oh, and we haven't even said Donkey yet. So we meet Donkey during the scene where they're like arresting all of the fairy tales creatures. He is a talking donkey, and he's voiced by Eddie Murphy, who's doing a slightly exaggerated, turned up to 11 version of Eddie Murphy.
In the behind the scenes material where they do all the cast interviews, probably the most said word by Eddie Murphy in those interviews is the word jackass. And he said the whole thing is being a jackass. And he talks about how he's a jackass all these times.
There's like 5 uses of ass in the dialogue in this film, to the point that, so we also had the junior novelization of Shrek, and it actually like censors several of the utterances of ass in the book. The not the original book, but the book based on the movie.
An interesting one is in the behind the scenes material, they would play clips from it, and they, for some reason, whenever it was dead broad off the table, they censored the word broad, and it was always dead girl off the table whenever they showed that clip.
Broad's just too far, man.
I guess so.
Yeah, the one that stuck out to me reading the novelization was when near the end, Shrek gives Donkey a hug or something, and Donkey says, "Come on, nobody likes a kiss ass." The book said kiss up. Nobody likes a kiss up.
Then now the pun is lost.
I have to save my ass is the one that always sticks out to me when they're in the castle.
It's also worth noting that when he's speaking, when he's voicing Donkey, he's doing it in, like I said, an exaggerated Eddie Murphy. So it's definitely African American vernacular English, and it's kind of like if you feel a little weird if you're a white person, kind of overdoing a Donkey impression. You know, some of the turns of phrases and the way that he accentuates certain words and such. And so what you have is this very striking and dynamic and contrasting vocal performances from the two leads, being the over-the-top Scottish brogue and Eddie Murphy doing his shtick. And I think that's part of the reason the movie is stuck in people's brains, because they're very distinct voices.
They also basically immediately, the two roles have really good writing chemistry. The obvious example is the ogres are like onions scene, which is like, it's so iconic. I could probably recite it from memory. Like the way Donkey is kind of incomprehending of everything Shrek is saying that allows him to sort of expand on everything really adds flavor to the way these characters bounce off each other.
Oh, and this script was written by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, who you don't hear a lot about screenwriters. They're kind of in the background, but these guys wrote Aladdin and they wrote Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. And when you learn that, it clicks.
Yes.
It's like, okay, that's the vibe. It's They write the funny, like pop culture informed, like rapid fire dialogue exchanges that you remember.
They're quippy, and they often have like these characters with sort of a very strongly sort of like straight man comedian dynamic between them.
Well, I think more to the point that Brian's making, they have a anachronistic sense of humor.
Yeah, certainly.
That too. But so in both Shrek 1 and Shrek 2, Shrek says, "Hold the phone." Nobody has a telephone here in the Middle Ages. So it just, I feel like that is, obviously there's many anachronistic references, but that has jarred me.
As Shrek and Donkey go on their journey, we get a travel montage. I'm on my way by, I forget the name of the band. The one that
It's
did
the same people that did The Pretenders?
Proclaimers.
Proclaimers.
We already mentioned that there's needle drops. We talked a lot about All Star. But Andrew, what would you say is like the essence of a Shrek song, Shrek core music?
Oh my goodness.
Too heavy a question?
Well, you had me thinking when that song is playing, they stroll up to the border of the moat around the castle, right? Or is that not okay? Yeah.
Yeah, it's when they're walking through the field. I'm on my way from misery. Yeah, you know.
In terms of the first movie, I would consider Shrek music to skew towards 2000s in terms of what's the peak Shrek music of the first movie.
Well, that's interesting because it came out in 2001, so there hadn't been that many 2000s music
year
at that point.
Y2K, yeah.
I know what you mean by that sort of late 90s sort of like skate punk might be the wrong word, but the sort of like grungy vibe of the late 90s, early 2000s that you get a lot of like it's almost like alternative pop is what it feels like to me, a lot of the stuff they have going on there.
Yeah, it's kind of when I think of what Shrek music is, the stuff that's on the soundtrack, it's like 75% adult alternative radio, but skewed slightly pop punk. And then like 25% sort of classic rock, but like radio flavored, not actually really classic rock.
Like jukebox songs is what it feels like to me. Like,
but there, it doesn't do too many of like the 30 most famous songs of all time that you'd expect to be in a jukebox. Mm-hmm. It's more like it's not off the beaten path, but it's like just maybe not the single most obvious choice, you know?
Right, like they don't do 500 miles by the Proclaimers. They do I'm on my way
Well, that
or
might have also been because it's more expensive to get that, but who
probably
knows?
true.
Another one of my big Shrek memories, and I don't know if we're here yet, but I had the Shrek 2 soundtrack that I got at a yard sale, and in 2014, I had that on heavy rotation in my car in the summer, and just constantly listening to the Shrek 2 soundtrack with stuff like Changes, stuff like I Need Some Sleep by the Eels, and it's just that's the one that I specifically was paying attention to. Oh yeah, accidentally in love, you know.
We were the same, or at least I was the same way with the Shrek 1 soundtrack, but whoever, there's somebody in the Shrek production staff that really likes the Eels, because the Eels are, I think there's an Eels song in all four of the Shrek movies, and I think more than, like, there's kind of a sort of, I would consider to be a centerpiece song in each Shrek movie, and in Shrek 1 it's All Star, in Shrek 2 it's Accidentally in Love, and then in Shrek 3 it's an Eels song, I think. I think it's, or that might be the one in Shrek 4, I Need Some Sleep. Well, anyway, there's all kinds of eels that they capture that vibe that Andrew was describing, I think, pretty well.
Absolutely.
And so I have like some synesthesia associated with it too, because that summer they were selling at the gas station Dr. Pepper flavored bubble gum. And so I can hear in my head the Shrek 2 soundtrack and taste in my mouth Dr. Pepper gum.
Oh, interesting.
There you go.
So then we're at the castle. Couple important things happen here. Of course, they do rescue the princess, voiced by Cameron Diaz. Again, a very, as Brian pointed out, a very Californian American voice. They also escape the dragon, and the way that they escape the dragon is Donkey seduces the dragon, who is a woman dragon. And so now Donkey's in love with the dragon, or at least will Donkey fall in love with the dragon, the way that the dragon apparently instantly falls in love with Donkey.
In this, there's a really funny scene after they get out when Shrek is carrying Fiona and she's talking to Donkey, and Donkey's like, "Yeah, but what if the girl you think she's in love with you, but she's a giant and she breathes fire, and you're not sure if you're ready to make the same step as her?" It's like immediately, even though he was clearly kidnapped and stuff like that, it's like he's trying to riff on the relationship there. But one thing about Cameron Diaz is she's not just the California thing. I think she kind of cut her teeth in these, like the Mask, like these sort of dynamic physical roles where she's also the sort of classic Hollywood beauty. Like I think there's a lot of her roles had a lot of edge to them, in addition to being a sort of a typical love interest, like damsel in distress, female lead in 90s Hollywood blockbusters.
I also just think she's a bad voice actress. So, I mean, it's kind of bland. Like, I don't really get much of a sense of her character the way that I do for Shrek and Donkey, but that's kind of subjective.
Interesting.
Do we think she's really singing in Far, Far Away Idol?
That's the important thing.
Yes.
I think so. I think so.
I mean, I did check the IMDb for Far, Far Away, and everything said all the voices were the real voices, but it didn't mention anything about singing voices. So
Oh,
I've been
well, that's
wondering.
cool. I think the set piece of the castle is so cool. Watching it this week, like that's when I locked in, is when they get there and they got the lava bridge. Like it feels dangerous. It feels deep and fiery, and just the choreography of it, of like the way that he sticks the sword through the links of the chain, and it's all just very storyboarded, and I appreciated it. The kinetic nature of it.
Well, I also think it's a chance for them to show off their technology and the stuff you can do in 3D CGI that's very distinctly that.
There's a POV shot at one point when he first lands. He gets flung into the tower, and you get the whole like the grid of the pillars when they're dragging the chains through it, and even just the lava moat and like the bubbling up lava. I think is was a tech moment for them, because like fluids I think were hard for early CG.
Andrew, you pointed out something to me about the mountain, this like caldera that they're in.
Oh, yes. I think maybe I saw something similar in Shrek 2, but certainly in Shrek 1, there are select scenes where it's like old style animation where there's layers of 2D paintings as props in front of them. Shrek and Donkey walking down the mountain or up the mountain.
Yeah, Andrew pointed out that there's basically these matte paintings, which I had never noticed before, but like the like rib cage of a horse that's there on the side of the mountain is like this 2D thing that's stuck in front of him. And it's cool. I had never noticed that before.
One of my favorite little details is when Shrek is talking about how he knows that Fiona or the princess is in the highest room in the tallest tower. And Donkey's like, how do you know that? And he's like, I read it in a book once, which is the book that was from the beginning of the movie that he wiped his butt with.
I think we've talked about wiping butts enough today.
Well, it's Shrek.
Yeah.
Good point.
You don't just fart in Shrek, you relish farting.
And belching.
In general, the animation in Shrek 1, there's some high points. I think it mostly looks like ass. Like a lot of the DreamWorks animation CGI from the era looks like ass. Shrek himself looks pretty okay. It was kind of like in Toy Story where they built it around like, oh, this is something we can animate well. It feels like a cartoonish ogre face was something they could animate pretty well. But like the Fiona character and most of the human characters, not looking too well 25 years on, I would say.
I think the most egregious one for me was Robin Hood. He kind of looks like real goofy. And the some of the knights early on. And Farquaad also has a very cartoonish design, so he doesn't look like he looks stupid, but he's kind of supposed to look stupid. Whereas the humans do not look great.
It doesn't bother me. I think it looks fairly good for the standard of 2001. We talked Jimmy Neutron not too long ago, and that one had to be ready to roll into a TV show and maintain consistency. This is a lot more advanced than Jimmy Neutron.
I refuse to say anything bad about how the humans look.
I agree that it doesn't bother me, but like if I'm trying to take and I'm also just really used to it because I've seen the movie so many times that nothing is going to stand out to me. But yeah, it definitely is an old CGI movie, and I think it's pretty clear that it's an old CGI movie.
But I think it's cool how in the sequels they kind of iterated on this style where they're going for realism of the humans. And it's like the character models are still the same, but they look much better with each sequel. It's like you can see like there's translucency to the skin and like there's light in the eyes, and it just is the same model, but it's becoming more lifelike.
We're not there yet, but in the fourth movie, they get a little carried away with the eyes. The eyes are like a hyper real in the fourth movie in a way that distracts me.
A lot of the ogre faces in the fourth movie are a little bit.
But I think in general, like the lighting, the character designs, they're up and down if you want to be generous about it in the first one. Okay, so they rescue the princess. Now we get the heart of it, which is basically that Shrek is a romantic comedy about Shrek and Fiona falling in love. And so you have kind of this whole cynical, irreverent parody and sort of like takedown of the over romantic norms of Disney movies and fairy tales. But then kind of actually have to do it too. And so again, I used the word tension earlier. I like the tension in Shrek 1. I like that it tries to do both, that they kind of inform each other and conflict with each other. Because basically what Shrek learns is that Fiona has some gross tendencies too and is not a prim and pretty princess. She can burp and fart with the best of them, as we all would hope to do. And she has an appreciation for his grossness as well. The swamp rat stew or whatever it is.
Fish-eyed tartar, you name it.
I appreciated that more this time that Shrek can cook. You know, he's a gourmand.
Also, it's weed rat stew, actually. He says, I don't mean to brag, but I make a mean weed rat stew, is what he says.
Yeah, because he's kind of got like this independent nature to him, too. Like self-sustained. Yeah.
Right. He owns his own land. He's domestic and yeah, I mean he's a provider. I can see why she would go for Shrek.
Yeah, and in the middle we get I think my favorite, certainly my favorite song from the soundtrack, but maybe my favorite needle drop, which is "My Beloved Monster" by the Eels. I love that song, and it's just so good, and it's so fitting for the movie.
I watched with my dad this week. Well, not everything. I didn't subject him to the Three Diablos or the Pig Who Cried Werewolf, but we watched the main Shreks, and he was laughing hard at the bit when Shrek and Fiona are bonding and they blow up the swamp animals like balloons.
The frog and the snake, yeah.
And my dad is not a guy who laughs out loud very frequently, but he was cracking up at that. And so Shrek inflates the frog, and then Fiona inflates the snake and twists it into a balloon dog.
Where this leads to is my single biggest complaint with the first Shrek movie, which is okay. So we learn that Fiona is cursed. At night, she turns into an ogre, like Shrek. Okay, that's an interesting concept. That's why she insists on like if they need to go more than a day, they can't travel during the night. She needs to be on her own at night. So Shrek and Fiona are growing closer together, and then we realize she kind of has this other side to her too that Shrek doesn't know about. But what really bothers me every single time that I watch it is that the conflict between them is introduced because not only does Shrek hear something to misunderstand what she is saying, the exact words that he hears are like specifically the words that he would have had to hear to get the opposite impression of what she's actually saying.
Dan hates this. Dan hates when this happens.
And then, and not only that, and then it doubles back. It happens the other way, where like they word things in a way where she's like, "I thought that didn't matter to you." Well, she doesn't say what it is, and she does, and like says it just vague enough that it could mean literally anything. And so he says, "Yeah, well, it does." And now, so they're thinking about opposite things here, and it's very like half-baked farce that doesn't work for me.
It works for me. And the reason that it works for me is because this is what's eating at Shrek even before he runs into Fiona. You know, he's carved this identity for himself out in the woods on his own, and like the way that he frames it is that's what he wants. But really, that's what he feels he has to do.
He's lying to himself.
There is self-loathing in Shrek.
Oh, for sure.
The classic line is, "I'm not the one with the problem. It's the world that has a problem with me." That's like his whole like character informed statement there, where he feels like they judge him before they even get to know him. Right? The ogres are like onions; they've got layers, but nobody wants to get past the green ugly layer. And the other thing is, it not only informs Shrek's conflict, and that's exactly what he was saying, but also Fiona's whole thing from her perspective is she is supposed to be the beautiful princess, and that's why the curse was so important to her, and true love's kiss and everything like that. So I understand that it is very contrived, but because it reinforces their character arcs, it doesn't bother me nearly like as much as it might otherwise.
Yeah, they had these perceptions preformed.
They get to that point not through happening to hear the exact 4 words that are going to make you think that. Get to a point where that's like a more organically developed point of conflict between them. Surely you could have come up with something.
Maybe. It's possible, but I can't imagine a world where Shrek is any different than it is.
Well, I don't know what to tell you, bud. But eventually, Donkey convinces Shrek that he was wrong, and they go and they rescue Fiona from marrying Farquaad. And when she realizes that Shrek loves her, she is not afraid to reveal her true self. So they kiss, and instead of her curse being broken and her being always human and pretty, she's always an ogre like Shrek.
Right, because the spell says if you have love's true love's kiss, you'll take love's true form. And so her thought is, oh, she'll be a princess all the time then, a human all the time then. But no, that's not love's true form. The true form is the ogre form. She's going goblin mode.
So I remember when this came out, there was a lot of discussion, or maybe it was just like a single news article I read. That to me could have been a lot of discussion. But does Shrek basically end with the moral that ugly people have to marry ugly people? Is that the takeaway from Shrek? And I think that's a bad faith reading, personally.
I agree. I think you could spin it that way, but I don't think that is the what they were going for.
Like,
I
why
think
does she have to be
obviously-
an ogre?
Well,
It could have been like, it doesn't matter what's on the outside. You could be like your ugly self, but still look like the princess, you know? That to me could have fulfilled the moral as well.
Well, I think that's why Shrek 2 is important, and I'm glad Shrek 2 happened. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's that what he tells her she's beautiful as she is once she's green.
yeah,
And
it's for that punchline.
yeah, and it subverts the Beauty and the Beast thing. I mean, it's like it
Yeah.
goes through the light flying from the toes and the fingers, and then she stays the same. Nothing changes.
Right. To be clear, I actually like it. It doesn't bother me, but I was wondering if you could do it the other way, and I think you probably could. But it wouldn't have the same like turning the classic tropes upside down.
Right. I think it works as a sort of a deliberate subversion of the like success and sort of the fulfillment of the romantic aspiration results in the most pure, beautiful form. And rather it's saying that it's more important the emotions of the sentiment are more important than the physical reality of it, I guess.
Yeah. But Andrew and I were talking.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Andrew, you go ahead.
Just that, what if Shrek was expecting to actually, as part of his true love, get to marry a human female, and it just worked out in the end that she turned into an ogre and he's still down to be involved with that.
Clown.
Yeah,
Well,
pound.
that wasn't
to
exactly
clown.
how I had understood our conversation. But that of all the things that Fiona, we know that
Oh,
Fiona's
yes,
cursed.
this is a great point.
She could take any form. It just happens to be a girl Shrek. It's like, oh, well, that's very convenient. She could be any kind of monster, but she is a Shrek with long hair and eyelashes.
Well, she's the an undercurrent is destiny. She talks about destiny the entire time. Then obviously in Shrek 4, it's sort of reinforced that he is her true love because they have that immediate chemistry where she's got this whole army of ogres, but Shrek's sort of ham-fisted attempts at wooing her somehow work because they have just animal, silent lust for each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, that's what Donkey says too. I'm an animal and I have
I've got instincts, yeah.
So
Wake up and smell the pheromones.
I see what you're saying, but for whatever reason, this one doesn't bother me. The fact that she happens to be a girl Shrek, and to me, I guess it's because this idea is built out that the ogre is like the epitome of unlikable and lonely and miserable. And so, like, if that's what her secret form is, then that kind of it rhymes, Brian. It's a George Lucas rhyme.
Yep. Man, Shrek 4. I guess we can't just be jumping around, but in Shrek 4, no, it's not even Shrek 4, it's Puss 2. The very last one, number 6.
Oh my goodness.
The most recent. There was a little bit of tension explored between nursery rhymes and fairy tales, and that nursery rhymes are like a subclass of citizen. And it's one line in the movie, but I really wish they had built that out. I hope in Puss 3 or Shrek 5 they do more with that because I think that's funny.
Well, I think you're hitting on something, which is that the nature of the parody it's not very thoughtful or deep.
It's like they wrote a line and they don't mind if 10 minutes from now it implies something different. They're not building a world here.
No. And so that's kind of bothered me as time has passed. And it's particularly, it like instantly became canon that a lot of these fairy tale creatures like hang with Shrek or like pals with Shrek, which it bothers me because it's like such a big deal for Shrek to even open himself up to one or two people. Except, I mean, I guess like the takeaway is he's more willing to open himself up, and you got to have the dance party at the end. We'll talk about that. But like all like the amount of screen time that these people who are like one-off jokes get, and So now I feel like we've kind of muddied the waters to the extent, yeah, fairy tales, nursery rhymes, but then there's more than that too in Shrek 2. It's like it's other stuff too. So it's just kind of messy. It's not a coherent world building, if you ask
I was
me.
gonna say, I think it sort of becomes muddy the more you think about the world building. You can make an intentional choice to take it at its surface level, especially past Shrek 1, where the world sort of fans out, and look for the most direct pun. Like the fairy godmother is a supposed to be like a mobster, like a godfather, and stuff like that. But you don't have to look beyond that because the one thing is, who put the curse on Fiona? We got four movies, and I always thought it was canonical that the fairy godmother did, but then I realized no, it's never said anywhere that she's the one who put the curse on Fiona. Just some witch.
In number one, she says a witch put a spell on me, but they never. It's almost like she was born that way. In fact, I even think they say that the first night. They're in one of the later ones. I have lost track. It's a mishmash. We watched like 17 movies.
Uh-huh.
But there was something that said, I think it's the book that opens two, because I just rewatched two. That's the only one that I watched twice. That the book says, the king and queen gave birth to a beautiful daughter, but when the sun set, she turned into a creature. So it's like, was the very first night that she was alive, did she become an ogre?
It's like a medical condition. Is it because her dad's a frog?
Okay, I think so. That's what we've always said. That's what they say in the radio episode, and that was another thing that made my dad crack up, was they were discussing, are ogres mammals and do they lactate?
Well, you see kind of shirtless Shrek in at least one point.
Yeah,
Does he have Shrek nipples?
that's what Isaiah said, was the
I'm
Shrek
pretty sure he has
nipples.
nipples.
When he's sleeping in Fiona's
His back
childhood
of
bedroom, you see his
Hair
chest.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does have chest hair.
But I don't think any hair is seen until Shrek 2. He's got like stubble.
Well, I mean, Fiona has hair, and if she's an ogre,
Yeah. Yeah. Like body hair.
Wig.
I guess I'm counting
wig.
facial hair in with body hair, but yeah.
All right, is there any? We should probably move on from Shrek 1 because we still have five more movies to discuss. Although I presume the discussions will go a little bit faster than the 2 hours we've taken to go over Shrek 1 here.
I think it will trend that way.
Yeah.
Shrek 2. Do we want to talk about like the spin-offs between the movies?
Well, we can talk about the karaoke thing.
Because
Sure.
it's important. I mean, the Shrek in the Swamp karaoke dance party rules.
It is awesome.
So it is fun. It's good. And it was on the VHS as a bonus feature, so it almost feels like it's part of the movie and not a separate thing. I will say, so specifically the karaoke party kicked off this idea that every animated movie needs to end with the dance party. And so for many, many years, many movies that were animated ended with characters singing and dancing to a pop song that you've heard before. And it starts to feel like a cheap shortcut to good feelings. It's like it got overused. And that's kind of how I feel about Shrek in general. It's like, I like Shrek a lot. It's going to get a good rating from me when we rate. But I also don't like that it set a template that like, oh, you can just do parodies and you can have pretty ugly CGI. And as long as like you have a famous celebrity or two and you have some parodies and it's like a slightly fantastical thing that you're depicting, that is enough to make hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office.
If you smirk on the poster and you dance in the credits, you get your 500 million at least.
And it's almost a shame because it's like when I was saying at the beginning how we're reckoning with Shrek, and if we want to consider it as like a film by itself, I think the sort of trends it set undercuts that Shrek is a very well-written movie. There's so many like smart jokes and there's all kinds of stuff going on throughout the script that I think a lot of the superficial trends that it set undermine that it was a pretty thoughtful product for what it was. Yeah.
And part of the problem was like 2D animation had just gotten way, way better in the 10 years leading up to it. They had figured out how to use computers. They had done like incredible achievements in stylization and integrating in CGI with like hand-drawn stuff with caps. at Disney, and that was all very sophisticated and complex and pleasing to look at. And then they're like, people like CGI movies, so we're going to basically do much less of that. And they don't look as good as the Disney movies of the era do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a shame because like later era 2D animation movies they look great, and everybody's hidden gem is like Atlantis or The Road to El Dorado or Princess and the Frog or Treasure Planet. Like all these pretty like solid movies that were just late era 2D movies that didn't get the buzz because CG movies were all the rage.
And if not for Pixar, the 2000s are basically a wasteland for animation. I mean, there's a couple of points, and how you feel about the various Shrek sequels may inform whether you agree with that statement or not. But like the artistry of the Disney Renaissance was gone for the CGI that was still an improving technology and artistic endeavor. All right. With that, like death of the medium talk, let's move on to Shrek 2. So I saw Shrek 2 in theaters, and seeing Shrek 2 in theaters was the first time I remember going to a movie and being like, that was not as good as I wanted it to be.
Oh, what? Okay. I knew this was going to be a point of disparity.
It's gonna happen.
Shrek 2 was one of my favorite theater experiences. I loved seeing Shrek 2 in the theater.
Interesting. All right, so what do you like about Shrek 2, Brian?
So, okay. I want to just explain a little of my experience this week, which is that first watch through this week, I had a greater appreciation for Shrek 1 than I had previously had. I had a slightly downturn on Shrek 2. It's like maybe Shrek 2 wasn't as good as I remembered. You may remember, listeners, I put it on my top 100 films, Shrek 2. But then I watched it again on the 3D Blu-ray, and I like Shrek 2. I really like Shrek 2. I think it does a lot of good things, and I think it's a tighter script. I think it makes sense where it went from Shrek 1. Like I will say maybe there's a universe where there's not a whole Shrek empire. Maybe they just stopped at Shrek 1, and maybe Shrek 2 didn't need to get made. But when the filmmakers sat down and they said, okay, Shrek 2 needs to get made, they thought through where to go, and I think they went to the right place.
But I think you have inherent in that explanation part of the problem that at least I feel with Shrek 2, and more so with Shrek 3, but at least some with Shrek 2, which is that like they were made because DreamWorks's bank accounts demanded that a Shrek sequel get made. It's not because there was a story they really felt like they had to tell. It was like, well, we're going to make a Shrek sequel, so like, what are we going to do? So it doesn't have the same urgency to it.
I'm going to push back just slightly because I think the delivery of the Shrek 2 story is basically, in a lot of ways, you're reframing. Shrek 1 is about Shrek embracing these people, and then it's about him going out and integrating into Fiona's life. And it has a lot more emphasis on Fiona's circumstances. And I think it's a successful sequel. I don't like it as much as Shrek 1, and I don't even know if necessarily how great I would consider it to be. But I do think it's a successful sequel because I think it answers a question that people may have had, which is, how did Fiona end up there? What is Fiona's circumstances? And it does not do so in a unsatisfying way. You get a lot of like, how is the family going to react to Shrek? Although it may seem like it's in many ways Shrek 1 is like The Graduate in that we get a picture of this idyllic life, but if you zoom out, you question whether it's truly as idyllic as it seems. I'm mostly joking when I say that, but Shrek 2 examines the sort of happily ever after. It's funny because I think the Shrek movies, especially 1, 2, and 4, examine kind of, especially 2 and 4 actually, kind of mature issues in that this one is about integrating with your in-laws, and Shrek 4 is about reckoning with like losing your individuality as you have children and stuff like that, and what like how your family pictures into your individuality and who you are as a person, while being framed in these very gag-heavy, sort of hyper-stylized, very parody-centric children's movies, but like the core character conflicts are relatively mature. So I think that Shrek 2, as it exists, is successful, even if it does not match the. I don't have the same reference for it that I have for Shrek 1. But I understand, Andrew. I think you are pretty high on Shrek 2, and I remember your radio co-host was a big Shrek 2 head.
Absolutely. I've been thinking about at the end of this, are we going to have a rating for each movie, or are we just going to try to give a list of our combinations of the 6 films?
I can't see that far into the future. I don't know what we're
Okay.
going to do.
That's years from now, as far
We
as
don't know
I
when
Yeah.
we're going to arrive there. I would say that at least the 6 get ratings.
I just feel like that would be more meaningful than independently rating each one.
So you mean you would prefer to rank them? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
We can do both, honestly, because I
Okay.
have pretty firm both ranking and ratings, and there is some overlap in a couple of the ratings. So a ranking, I think, would be informative.
So the gist of the story is it's been kind of, I mean, again, you probably know what it is if you're listening to this podcast, but Shrek and Fiona go to see their in-laws after getting married to basically get the approval of Fiona's parents, who are kind of a traditional king and queen, voiced by John Cleese and Julie Andrews. Meanwhile, we learn that there is a fairy godmother and her son, Prince Charming. We don't immediately know that they are related. That's a kind of late movie revelation, but that Prince Charming, who looks like Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones and is like your stereotypical handsome blonde locks kind of guy, the fairy godmother envisioned that her son Prince Charming would marry Fiona and would be kind of the new king, the new royalty, with Fiona in her human pretty form being queen. And so now that they're here, it's time for the fairy godmother to kick into a plan to basically undo Shrek and Fiona's romance. And that leads to lots of interesting culminating things, one of which is Shrek drinking a potion that transforms him and Fiona, and then Donkey gets some in his mouth too, so he transforms too into their quote-unquote beautiful forms. So Shrek becomes a handsome fella with a square jawline. Fiona turns back into her human form, and Donkey becomes like a stallion, a steed.
I'm thinking now, what did Dragon change forms as well? Because if Shrek and Fiona both change form just because Shrek drank it, did Dragon also become some sort of like other form that's apparently more beautiful than Dragon?
I had that in my notes.
Unanswered. What do you think, Andrew?
Well, I fell into some what I determined to be slop online. It's been discussed online a bunch of times, and everybody mentioned some alleged interview with the writers that said that they wanted her to be a Pegasus, but then there's no sources for any of that. I couldn't find any of the interviews, so I think it's a hallucination of the Shrek wiki and Reddit and everything.
A collective internet
Yeah.
hallucination.
Well,
And whatever she becomes, it's while she's going through the process of giving birth. So that must have just been very stressful for Dragon.
Mhm.
So some things that I like about Shrek 2. So one thing it does is it expands the world of Shrek. And mainly we go to Far, Far Away, which is Hollywood. It's
Yeah.
LA. I don't think every little bit works, but there's a lot of like really inventive stuff that's clever. But I still, even the good stuff, I feel a little bit of strain because it's like
Every little bit works, listener. It's I'm not going to speak ill of Shrek 2, but carry on.
okay, so I think it feels like they had to, it's like it worked in one. It had this very nice balance of parody and earnestness, and then with 2, it's like, well, people really what they talked about, what they remembered was like the funny jokes about fairy tales. So we're gonna give them a whole lot of those, but like in a cool new setting. and we're going to spend more time making them funny and thinking about them. So even in their success, I feel a bit of artistic failure in Shrek 2.
There are some fun things, but it really goes like balls to the wall with how many gags there are. And it's so gag forward with just like you've got like Joan Rivers in there and stuff. Like it's really pushing the whole Hollywood far, far away thing to the nth degree.
But it's at
Some of
least
it works.
funny.
Okay, so the reason that it works for me, I mean, it is more dense with the specific pop culture references, but I think it ties them in well enough. Like the montage at the honeymoon at the beginning when the ring is made and it's the ring from Lord of the Rings and she catches it on her finger like Frodo. But it's still sweet, you know, the fire letters say I love you. And like that's kind of the tone of the whole thing. But the message is in the first movie, Shrek, his change is he just had to accept love. He had to be like, I will let the world in because it's, you know, it's not this self-imposed self-loathing that I have. I can accept that I have value and that other people in the world can see that. But Shrek 2 is Shrek stepping up and showing that he too is willing to make sacrifices. Like he is willing to change for the people that he loves. And I think that's done well. It's like, is this a movie that needed to exist? You know, maybe not. Maybe it was motivated by profit. But I think they did a good job. I vibe with Shrek 2.
Speaking of profit, it was the highest grossing animated movie of all time when it came out until Toy Story 3, which was 5 or 6 years later, I think. So it was, it was a massive success. And I would say it's mostly deserved. It's not a, like, when I compare Shrek 2 to other, like, massive success movies like the Minions movies, or I've seen some other ones, and I'm like, okay, maybe Shrek 2, I think even if it is not necessary, I accept it. It's appreciated, even if it's not necessary. You don't like, it doesn't diminish Shrek 1 by its existence. It's not one of those sequels that ruins the franchise. Puss in Boots does not work in this movie, really.
Okay, Puss in Boots is so stupid. They spend so long building up that he's the best assassin, and then literally one scene later, he gets a hairball, and then
I was like, gonna say, how did he end up joining Shrek? It's like they
and then he's like,
fight.
a turtle thing. I was like, what is even happening in the story? I feel like I end up liking Puss in Boots, but not until we learn more about Puss in Boots. I feel like in Shrek 2, it doesn't quite. It's like for one gag. It's like the Tagir.
He never gets a hairball again, right?
But he does do
any of the movies.
Okay, so my thoughts. I forgot that he just gives up that fight. That was random and like I had glossed over that in my brain. I do really think the setup of him is so cool. And his energy is very cool. And he's the Antonio Banderas Zorro, which is one of my favorite movies. Like I've got that one on my list higher above Shrek 2. So
that's another movie I watched in preparation of this. I forgot to mention the tendrils. I will say that he gives maybe the thing that got the biggest laugh the most recent time I watched it, which was when Fiona walks out and he's sitting on the horse and she says Shrek. Or Shrek, and he goes, "For you, baby, I can be," or something like that. That made me laugh really hard.
Banderas understands the assignment. He's a very good voice actor.
He clearly cares about this character. Like he does a great job delivering it.
Brian, you called out one gag in chat, or it's not even really a gag. It's a segment. They do a cops riff because at one point Shrek's on the run because like he's been. I don't even remember exactly what it is. There's a lot of mayhem in this movie. It's like, is it the fairy godmother has sicked the cops on?
Yeah. So Shrek has become the handsome human and Donkey's the horse, and they get to far, far away where he's going to say to Fiona, "Hey, we could be this way. I've been thinking about it, and maybe you wanted to be the beautiful human." So, okay, that is a weakness of Shrek 2. They're picking at a story thread that was pretty firmly resolved in Shrek 1. She said, "I want to be an ogre." And he's like, "Well, but do you really?" In Shrek 2.
Well,
exactly.
I don't disagree with that, but at least it frames it not in. It's not that she's unhappy. It's that he feels pressured because he cannot fit in with her parents, who she clearly has a lot of love for. So I will say that Fiona, in basically every movie, remains the sort of moral core, and she does not deviate that. And even Shrek really will have moments of boorishness, but he retains his character growth from the first movie. He has, even like in Shrek 4, it's not like he wants to renounce his family completely. He specifically wants a single day off, which I think is a relatively reasonable ask. So they do a good job of not making him too like regress on his. They don't like Flanderize him and make him like jerk ass Homer or whatever, where he completely regresses on his character development from Shrek 1. And so, at least in my view, it's framing it from the perspective of fitting in with her family rather than specifically, does she want to be an ogre anymore?
Right.
And it's also his insecurity, because if you remember, he reads the whole Mrs. Fiona Charming, Mrs. Fiona Charming.
I think that's a big part of it, is that they're sleeping in her childhood bedroom and he's getting a sense of this life that she had previously envisioned for herself. And is she
Right,
living
and
up to that?
he feels like he's dragging her down.
Exactly.
I think more broadly, so I said that Shrek 1 was a romantic comedy, and it gets you to care about the characters and their relationship. They have good chemistry. And then it's like any romantic comedy, if you're ending with the happily ever after, like it's inherently tough to follow that up from a narrative perspective. I can't think of too many examples where like it's like, okay, happily ever after, they both earned it, they both grew, but I guess we have to basically, like Brian said, kind of do that again. Are they still going to both accept their happily ever after and make the changes they need to make? Well, they already did that. Like that was it was achieved. It was done. So there's a certain redundancy built into it.
At least they didn't take the Pocahontas 2 perspective where they threw Shrek off a tower into a river or something like that.
At least then it's new characters who have to figure out how to be together.
I don't know. It works for me. So in the cop scene, they've come to town, Shrek and Donkey, and the way that this is executed, I think, is done well, that Fiona speaks to Donkey. So she hears that this potion has taken effect, that they've become sexy, as Eddie Murphy says. But she doesn't run into Shrek. The fairy godmother corners Shrek and pawns in Charming as human Shrek. And I guess Fiona hasn't seen Charming in a long time. The king knows who Charming is. So this is another instance where it's all misformed understandings.
It's a little bit contrived.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I like it. And so she's like thrown Shrek, the real human Shrek, handsome human Shrek with the firm buttocks, to the authorities, who are these knights. And the fairy tale friends watching at home, who it's like, oh, they're still in the movie. They see this broadcast, which is a parody of Cops, and I've just always appreciated that there's like 6 or 7 jokes in the span of about 20 seconds in this Cop sequence.
Mm-hmm.
So they use pepper mills, where they grind the peppercorns into people's eyes like pepper spray.
I love that. Yeah.
And they take a little dime brag of catnip off Puss in Boots. And he says, "That's not mine."
That actually happens. They make the same joke in Puss in Boots 1. He says that's for my glaucoma or something like that, which is the same wee joke. But yeah.
But the whole narration of the program, and he calls them the boys in steel.
I appreciate how the idea that Cops is like live. It's not, it's like a live, they're just following police around, videotaping these things.
What are some of your favorite gags in Shrek 2, Andrew?
I guess it isn't a gag. What first comes to mind that hasn't been brought up is the Mission Impossible Pinocchio scene.
Oh, that's pretty funny, yeah. Because they needed him to lie. It's doing Mission Impossible, and then they need his nose to grow, so they need him to lie. So they say something ridiculous.
Like, I'm wearing women's underwear, which, by the way, this line has reverberations, because in Shrek the Halls, when he's hanging up his stocking, he hangs up a fishnet stocking. So because of this line, Pinocchio's character has been cemented as some kind of pervert who dresses up in these particular outfits. So I'm just saying.
He's just saying.
An icon for the end of Pride Month.
I guess so.
Yeah, I feel like they wanted to make Pinocchio a bigger presence than it seems like is warranted.
He's a huge presence in Shrek the Musical. He's
Yeah,
like
he's like
character number
fourth
5.
build
Yeah.
on the musical credits. He's the only supporting fairy tale character who gets like they show his face in the credits.
Okay, I have a dumb question. They make a big deal about how human Shrek is hot, but is human Shrek actually hot?
Obviously.
I think you're asking the wrong audience. I think he's a handsome fella.
He is way more attractive than Prince Charming.
Okay.
It's interesting because it's like even then it's like contrasting pictures of hotness because it's like the sort of he's got the rugged like everyman like big like the Henry Cavill type of attractiveness compared to like the sort of pretty boy type of attractiveness of Prince Charming. So
Yeah.
even then it's a sort of a different reaction.
How many people would we say we've all encountered in our lives that we think look like human Shrek?
Okay, well, Andrew, what is your answer to this?
At least 3.
Wow.
3 human Shreks.
Yeah.
Is it me, Dan, and Brian? Are we the 3 human Shreks? No.
Have you ever gathered them all
Maybe.
into a room in like a Shrek con or something?
All right.
Uh,
Better
A Shrek
question.
fest,
I
if you
should have been
will.
working on.
Andrew, have you ever met anybody who you thought looked like Ogre Shrek?
Yeah, maybe. Probably more times, but that could get me in trouble to discuss.
You're not going to name names
Also-
on the air.
When Donkey becomes the White Stallion, I mentioned this in the chat we had, but I always thought he looked like uncanny. There's something about Stallion Donkey's face that always creeped me out.
I will say the animation got a lot better between 1 and 2. The humans, all the faces, the lighting, it's just all looks a little bit better in part 2. It's not all the way there, but it's making a lot of progress. So one thing we haven't shouted out that is a true highlight is the climax. So the climax is this kind of, I don't even entirely get it, but it's very cool. The fairy godmother at this ball where Fiona and Prince Charming, who is now pretending to be Shrek, as Brian said, there's this big like kind of misunderstanding plot setup where Fiona thinks that Charming is Shrek, are being introduced, and she's singing the Bonnie Tyler song "I Need a Hero," which has a truly dreadful cover on the Shrek 2 album by some other artist. But I like the Jennifer Saunders version. So she's the one who voices the fairy godmother. We get her in character performing the song. So it's a little different from like the needle drops we have because it's a character singing it, although it is an established pop song. And as she's singing at this ball, we have the sequence of Prince Charming dancing with Fiona and other things kind of going on at the party itself. But meanwhile, Shrek has reunited with the fairy tale creatures, and they are staging an invasion of this party so that Shrek can declare his love for Fiona and clear the air about who she's actually dancing with.
Yeah, so what I gathered this time is this is the finale of The Princess Bride. You know, it's this group that's coming in to swarm. So I guess both Shrek 1 and Shrek 2, the ending borrows from the ending of The Princess Bride. Because in Shrek 1, it's specifically a wedding that they're trying to interrupt. And in Shrek 2, it's all but name a wedding. It's Charming trying to win over Fiona, but in this guise as human Shrek. And that's what needs to get interrupted. But that they got to storm the castle to do it.
What's genius about it is the cross-cutting. So it's like this big dynamic number, and seeing the spectacle of these two things happening at once colliding. It doesn't really make sense, but even as I was thinking about the ways it doesn't make sense, I was like, just enjoy it. It's okay. You can.
Yeah.
I can like this thing.
And we get like the kaiju gingerbread man Mongo, is that his name?
Yeah, where did this come from? How did they make a giant gingerbread man and like apparently instantly?
What happens is there's some framing. It's like when you have the Leaning Tower of Pisa picture shots where Shrek sees the gingerbread man, and then behind him he sees like a tower or something like that. So that sparks the idea of let's make a giant gingerbread man.
A kaiju.
Get the rehash of do you still know the Muffin Man? Yeah, he's down on Drury Lane. And then he's like, fire up your ovens or whatever. Apparently, he's got an oven large enough to bake a kaiju-sized gingerbread man, but the whole sequence is not particularly logical. And then his last words are like, be good or something like that, right? That's got to be a reference to something like the Terminator or something like that. It's got to be a reference to something that I don't understand because otherwise, why would he say be good to Gingy?
It's also like a Frankenstein element to it of creating this monster. So you kind of got a few things going on here.
So I had Coffin Joe on the brain this week. That was the only other comparable episode to me in terms of just endless movies that could be watched. And in Coffin Joe, the climax of the second film is this phantasmagorical hell sequence where like Coffin Joe gets dragged into this nether world where it's in color. And it's just like more vibrant and incredible than anything else in the series. And so it's like, is the second movie better or does it just have the best scene? And that's how I feel about the Holding Out for a Hero number. It's like, I feel like this is when the franchise is firing on all cylinders. And to me, it's also that every character has something going on. It feels like the Maladjusted Jester song in Court Jester with Danny Kaye, where it's like every character has their goal that they're pursuing. And in this one song, they're all going about it. So I think that's really well executed.
Do you have any thoughts, Andrew, on I know you've been kind of quiet. I know you're a huge Shrek 2 fan, so
I mean, part of that is Far, Far Away, Idol, which I've already talked about. All I can really say is I am still fairly confident that I like it more than one.
On that subject, just because he mentioned the interquel things that got added onto the home releases. So in this sequence, when Charming is sweeping Fiona across the floor, she says, "Since when do you dance?" Like, Fiona, were you not at the Shrek in the Swamp karaoke dance party?
Oh man, get dunked.
yeah, but I think the point is that Shrek sucks at dancing in that he's not he can dance theoretically, but he's not a tango master or whatever. He's not spinning a rose in his lips like Charming is there.
Now that I think about it, Brian, you mentioned liking the dragon scene in Shrek 1 in the castle. And there's a couple of good action scenes throughout Shrek 2, but it's this last one that you get like kind of a sense of scope the way that you do the dragon scene. So it actually feels kind of connected to that spiritually. But the way it ends is they decide not to kiss before midnight so that they will return back to their ugly forms, is the gist of it.
Right. Human Shrek gets to him, says, "I'm Human Shrek. That guy is not Human Shrek." The father of Fiona has a redemption moment.
And gets turned back into a frog.
Yeah, that's his deal. Yeah.
Because the whole thing is that he had made a deal. So I think the premise is that he's in debt to Fairy Godmother because she turned him to a human so he could marry the queen. But I do like one thing I like about the writing is there's 4 or 5 things leading up to it. Like when he goes to the bar to hire Puss in Boots, a little frog lady is like, "Don't I know you?" And when they're talking about their first date, they're like, "Oh, it's down by the lily pads." And there's like a few of these things where it's like, "Oh, okay." So clearly this is like a thing all along. And I appreciate that about the writing.
Yeah, it's planted well, and maybe a reason why he has a mutant green daughter.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I guess he was in debt to the fairy godmother. That's why he was going to marry her. But he decides to stand up for himself, and then he croaks literally when he turns into a frog.
Oh man, I love the villain bar. I want to go to the villain bar from Shrek 2, and with the Captain Hook playing Tom Waits on the piano.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate that as much until I listened to Andrew's radio show. But that the song is a lot of fun by Captain Hook.
I was really admiring the sequence, honestly, like up there with the I need a hero thing, because it's so cool when going into the bar, you get, the fun. It's just like a different vibe from everything else that you've had, and the music makes it good. It's just like there's a lot of little bits of color where you can tell like they had a lot of smart people really thinking about ideas to like toss into the movie. It's like, oh, villain bar. Oh, that's a great idea. Here's 50 ideas you can have in a villain bar, and you get that in like 3 minutes.
And I just want to say that basically, at least for the first two movies, every soundtrack, like OST choice, is pretty inspired. There's very I don't think there's a single miss. And some of the more off the wall ones, like Funky Town, works.
That's great. The Funky Town montage of the introduction to La La Land, that was pretty inspired. We didn't even shout out Hallelujah.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about it at all, but Hallelujah is
Oh.
iconic in the first one. And it's funny because I more associate the Rufus Wainwright version, which is the one off the soundtrack, because I listened to the soundtrack so many times. So I prefer that one, but it's not the one actually in the movie.
Hallelujah. I'm glad you brought it up. That was the moment seeing Shrek 1 in the theater that it made me pause. It's like, wait a minute. This is a real ass movie.
I was gonna say, it's a real ass movie. We got
Yeah,
a real ass
it's
movie on our
similar
hands.
to the soup scene in Goofy movie. It's like that's the time when it clicked for me. Like this has ambitions, cinematic ambitions that dissolve between Shrek and Fiona crying at the different tables. The graphic match, it's like, "Oh, I'm feeling things now."
These people who know what they're doing are making these movies.
Hmm.
Yeah, I really really appreciate like Accidentally in Love an inspired choice. Even like All Stars an inspired choice, even though it's like meme to death. It's very fitting. I Need a Hero is a fantastic choice for that climactic scene. Like all of the Tom Waits song is great for the villain bar. That they all hit real well. Obviously the one that I pointed out earlier is My Beloved Monster and Me. That song is perfect for the situation. So yeah. I just like a tip of the cap to whoever picks the songs for Shrek. That guy, great taste.
That role is usually called music supervisor. I have never looked up who was the music supervisor, if they were shared across all the movies. Certainly seems they were cultivating like a certain flavor of soundtrack. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same music supervisor or team, music supervision team, or maybe they were just like, oh, let's maintain this spirit across the series.
Shrek 1 and 2 at least had the same director credited.
Apparently, Shrek 1 and Shrek 2 had a different music supervisor. Shrek 2 and 3 had the same music supervisor.
Hmm.
But I said to the guy, I was incorrect. The music supervisor for Shrek 1 was Mary Lotta Elton.
Hallelujah. So the song was written by Leonard Cohen, and then it's had many covers through the years. And probably the most recognizable was by John Cale of Velvet Underground. Like when you hear it in Shrek, it's the John Cale version, but then they couldn't license it for the actual soundtrack. So they got Rufus Wainwright doing a John Cale impression for the soundtrack, is what Will was referring to.
I like it. I prefer that version personally, but it's probably mostly exposure. And also, I would say that the most recognizable cover of Hallelujah is the one by Jeff Buckley, not by John Cale. I think the Jeff Buckley version might be even more famous than the Leonard Cohen version.
I prefer the version that Andrew sent me that samples the DK monkey rap from Donkey Kong 64. That's the best version of Hallelujah.
There are so many covers of Hallelujah. There's a documentary about how many covers there are of Hallelujah. That's like a real movie that exists.
Andrew, do you have any favorite songs off the soundtracks of the first two?
Shrek 2, Funky Town, for sure.
Hmm.
Accidentally in Love is also good, but
Do they use the original version of Funky Town in Shrek 2, or is it a cover?
I think it's the original.
I think it's the original.
Yeah. Lips Inc.
Interesting about Accidentally in Love is that the version they play in the movie is not like the studio version. It's like an acoustic version.
Really?
Yeah. I noticed that it's like a slightly slower acoustic version compared to the one that's actually on the soundtrack.
So I have just a brief anecdote here, which is that for me, like maybe number one all time, like amber of the moment, like a nostalgia moment was 2004 when this song was really popular. And I went to the mall with a girl I liked at the time, and some of our friends. And after we walked around the mall, went to the food court, we went and sat outside, and there was a gazebo outside, and we tried to remember all the lyrics to "Accidentally in Love." And so it's a song that's always nostalgic for me.
I like it.
Like plays out like a movie scene in my head when I think back on it.
I realized that a lot of my memories of that, like I listened to the soundtrack a lot, not just watch the movie and experience the songs that way. So when Brian was sharing the version of it was like the do 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 do, like the pop song that has that riff in it. I was like, oh, I know this song just because I had listened to the soundtrack so many times.
Yes, moment of appreciation for the pop rendition of "It Is You I Have Loved," which is they took that melody and put words to it, and it's in the credits of Shrek 1. And I went to, in 2019, a wedding where at the reception they prominently played that. And it's like, dang, this is a good pick. This is a good reel pull. It's like, I got to use this. I'm going to recycle this if I ever get the chance.
Was it an ogre wedding you went to?
No, it was a Mormon wedding.
I
So
see.
as such, I didn't actually get to go to the wedding itself. It was just the reception. I wasn't welcome in the temple.
I see.
Also, I made him aware of that song before that.
That's
So
right. I had first I had never, as many times as I had watched the DVD, I had never really noticed that that was a thing that they did in the credits until it was in Andrew's Shrekisode, and then shortly thereafter I went to this Mormon wedding reception where it was
There
played.
you go.
Dang, this is a good song.
So, Andrew, it's come up twice. Far, far away idol. Why is it important? What do we need to know about it?
well, of course, that Simon Cowell is in it.
Yes, this is unholy.
Yeah.
this is the peak stupid modern pop culture reference, like over the top. I'm like, okay, why is Simon Cowell in?
But it's literally just him.
Yeah.
He is Simon.
So I just literally before we hit record on the episode, I realized I hadn't watched this since the Shrek 2 DVD, and I was like, oh, I gotta watch Far, Far Away Idol. And the top comment on YouTube was that the person who left this comment assumed that this was the Simon of Simon Says. That's his nursery rhyme character, or perhaps Simple Simon who met the pieman walking to the fair. No, this is just Simon Cowell as himself.
I remember, if I remember correctly, you could vote in the DVD extras, and depending on who you voted for, different people would have like they would be the winner, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
And
Yep.
one of them was just Simon dubbing himself the winner. It's kind of hard to explain how big of a cultural phenomenon American Idol was in those first like 4 seasons. I remember everybody talking about it and everybody watched every week how huge it was. So, and I guess this was right around then. So,
The William
Simon Cowell,
Hung
man.
seasons.
yeah, the Kelly Clarkson, Ruben Studdard. Who was season 3? Clay Aiken was season 2. Season 3 was somebody. I don't
Fantasia.
remember. Was that Fantasia or was that season 4?
Nope. Season 3 was Fantasia.
Carrie
Chris Daughtry
Underwood.
was there. Carrie Underwood, yeah. It was huge. So huge that it got a Shrek 2 reference.
That's when you know you've made it, is when you get
Mhm.
referenced in Shrek 2.
I someday hope to be referenced in Shrek 2.
And now Simon's washed up.
Oh, is Simon washed? Is that true, Andrew?
Well, I shouldn't judge plastic surgery.
But let's judge plastic surgery.
He was doing America's Got Talent for a while after doing Britain's Got Talent. He may have ended up back on American Idol recently. I'm not sure.
I have a plastic surgery anecdote for later in our coverage.
I heard he's a chopped unk at this point.
Actually, I was gonna just bring this up. Somebody called Disclosure Day Unk-core as a movie. And so I was thinking of you, Andrew.
I'm glad.
One and only time I've been called a chopped unk thus far in my life is by you. All right. Well, I guess that's Shrek 2.
Indeed.
So Shrek 3 sucks. Now let's get to Shrek 4. No, I'm just kidding.
But why does Shrek 3
Let's
sucks?
let's declare it unanimous. Yeah, but yes, we need some forensic analysis. And so in 2007, we got Shrek 3. Shrek the Third. For whatever reason, we didn't see it in theaters. I did not see it in theaters. Did you, Andrew?
I did
Okay.
on a sleepover. And when it was discussed that we were going out to see Shrek 3, it seemed like I didn't believe it. It seemed crazy to me.
Why?
Well, just like it was last moment plan. All I knew is we were having a sleepover, and then the guy that I was staying with, sister, ran in and was like, "Our parents are talking about going to see Shrek 3." And lo and behold, we went and saw it, and it was fucking garbage.
I think this in preparation for this was the first time I had seen Shrek 3.
So
Wow.
if Shrek 2 is like kind of redoing Shrek 1, some of the themes of it, but like okay, I was gonna say diminishing it, but that's maybe subjective. Shrek 3 is like even more watered down and redoing stuff, but not exactly that. So we should say what it is. So
Yeah.
the gist of it is that Fiona's dad, who is king, dies. And when he dies, the plan seems to be that now Shrek is king unless Shrek brings another person to be king into the kingdom. And there is one heir left, and it is Artie, who is Arthur. And so we get some Arthurian stuff in here. But he is still a high school student at a fantasy high school of sorts. Meanwhile, Shrek is reeling from the news that Fiona is pregnant and expecting ogre babies.
I have like a couple of general thoughts. My one thing of praise is that I think the scene when Harold is dying is funny. When he like fake dies a couple of times and stuff like that. I think it's probably the best scene in the movie. The lead up and to his death. Most everything doesn't work, but that one scene I appreciated.
I completely disagree. I feel like that is emblematic of what makes this movie fail, which is that every decision is wrong. Like, what should the tone be? It's the wrong tone. That it should be funny or it should be sad. And they're like, well, what if we made it kind of funny and kind of sad? But they made it kind of funny in the wrong ways and kind of sad in the wrong ways, so that I didn't think it was funny and I didn't think it was sad. And I was like, why am I wasting my time watching this? The best scene in the movie is the dream sequence where the babies, we get thousands of babies.
Just endless
stuff.
babies.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I agree. I actually thought the stuff in Far, Far Away with Fiona is not nearly as bad as the stuff with Arthur and Shrek. Like when it cuts between them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with that. So, for whatever reason, I didn't see Shrek 3 in theaters. I guess I was 17. I was in a place where it's like, oh, I don't go see kids' movies.
That's embarrassing.
I know. And it changed roundabout when Bolt came out in 2008, and there was buzz. There was buzz that, oh, Disney has got the juju back. They're coming back. It's like cool people go and see the Disney movies. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I've come around again. But for whatever reason, didn't see Shrek 3 until I picked it up on DVD because we had Shrek 1 on DVD, Shrek 2 on DVD, watched them endlessly. It's like, well, I got to see it eventually. I got to watch Shrek 3. And I watched it, and it's like, what was that? It's like, why are those the choices they made?
It's direct to video core.
Yeah.
It really feels like a non-canon sequel. It's terrible. Like
And to me, it's that they're spending so much time on these new human characters. And it's like, I don't care about King Arthur within the context of Shrek. So they roll up to this Camelot High School, and my thinking is Camelot High School is a script that somebody wrote to be its own movie. Of let's have a teen AU King Arthur story that's kind of funny and it's animated. And it's like, okay, I think like that could maybe have legs. Like that was in a slush pile and somebody was like, well, maybe we greenlight this. And then they're like, well, hey, it's been, 18 months since Shrek 2 and it made a bunch of money. Let's greenlight something. Let's have a script good to go and we'll stick Shrek in it.
It's like everything is bad about the Camelot High School and about this Arthur character and about like there's no thought like the sort of dissection and the breakdown of Shrek's character in Shrek 1 and the whole conflict that reverberates from who he is as a person and stuff like that. It makes sense and it feels like it's a sort of authentic representation of real issues. Shrek 2, you've got the whole in-laws conflict in many ways like literally turned his wife into an ogre. So the whole she's marrying down thing is like literalized via the fact that her form has changed. And then in Shrek 3, it's like Shrek is worried about being a father, but also there's some insecurity about royalty. It just none of it jives.
He's averse to taking on responsibility. That's what he's grappling with. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, here's my defense of the Camelot School, which to be clear, I don't actually think is good, but I actually find the thread of Shrek interacting with Artie to at least like hit on a thematic core, because this idea that Shrek doesn't know what it means to be a dad, he needs to figure out what that is. Like that's a kernel of a character idea that the movie is at least thinking about. And so when he kind of becomes this sort of father figure to Artie, and Artie is someone who's in need of like somebody to be a figure for him that like encourages him to be bolder and to get out of this rut that he's in. Okay. So like there are things there. And I will say like the idea of it's at least different. So it's like, oh, we're going to do high school stuff. Now they didn't really have any good jokes. It's almost like, what if we did kind of the Shrek 2 thing where we just throw in 100 jokes a minute and that's going to be our writing MO here. It's just, we're going to care less about the story, throw in more jokes, but none of the jokes were good. And we're like just running on fumes.
The one that made me cringe the most was when they were doing the mascot thing and then Donkey and Puss were just like hitting him. And he's like, if that was real, it would have been excruciatingly painful. I was like, I think some of the writing of Shrek just got to saying what the joke is out loud after you deliver it, just in case you didn't get the 5-year-old to laugh. I agree that there are ideas there, but the problem is there's too many ideas and they do not come together in any way.
I agree with that.
The resolution does not feel congruent with everything that has happened so far.
I think the biggest problem is, well, I mean, nothing works, but like the point where you see like, okay, they didn't even like get to step one is there's not a villain. It's just the retread of the villain from 2, where you have the Prince Charming. And it's like, I don't know, these movies are almost proportionally as good as their villains are. And like a retread of Prince Charming is just not interesting.
Yes. So Charming he was fine as like the fail son pretty boy in the second one, but he does not stand on his own.
Yeah. The only bit I remember like chuckling at when I watched it on the DVD initially was, and this was back in like, 2007, 2008. So Charming is washed up. I assumed they were done with him. Like, I almost even thought he had, like, died or something at the end of the second one. But so he's washed up, and the way that they represent that is he's doing dinner theater. So he's an actor now in these, like, off-Broadway productions. And, like, his big confrontation with Shrek at the end of 3 is in the form of a play. And there's, like, a band accompanying it. And the band is Captain Hook is the leader of the band, and they play this knockoff version of the Pirates of the Caribbean music. And like that was the bit that I laughed at when I watched this, like this pirate stand-in music.
I hate the climax of this because it like plays off of Shrek being charismatic, of like he's like cracking jokes with the audience and stuff like that. And why is Arthur mad about becoming king? Why is he like ever upset about it? There's no like, we get him being a loser, but there's no like he's afraid of responsibility baked into his loser characterization. And why does he look exactly like Charming? Also, Merlin is the most nothing of a side character.
Merlin is terrible. Just cut that scene out.
only serves to switch Donkey and Boots. That's all he does.
Ugh.
This is kind of like a retread on the second movie where they I mean, I guess all of them have transformation as an element, but the transformation here is that yes, body swap between Puss in Boots and Donkey.
It's the least credulous of all the transformations. It's just it was in there. That's like pure marketing fodder where you have a scene in the trailer where you hear Puss in Boots' voice coming out of Donkey or vice versa.
And
Like that's
and
what it
tries
felt
to do
like.
the cute eyes in Donkey's horrible body.
Oh yeah, that's gonna come back
It comes up so many times in the Puss in Boots
every
movies.
single movie from here
Yeah.
on out.
Sounds unanimous. Our feelings
Yeah.
vis-a-vis Shrek
We
3.
just one of the things is that we visit the high school for such short period of time that there's no time for it to develop as an element of parody. So
Yep.
we get a few things like I appreciate the high school girls talking in this really over the top fake old English as like a parody of child
That
slang.
made me laugh. I actually kind of
I
liked that
I
gag.
thought that was kind of funny, and like as a parody element that works for me. And maybe like Lancelot being a jock could have worked, and the nerds being secretly the ones who are bullying Arthur. I thought that was kind of funny too. But like overall, we just didn't spend enough time there for it to develop because they're really in there for like 15 minutes, and they have to go back to Far, Far Away. Whereas in Shrek 2, they spend the entire time in Far, Far Away. So we get time to have it flesh out as a sort of like for the parody of Hollywood and stuff like that.
So the funny thing to me is that you're this hard, but all of you on three, but then don't seem to hold like two has a lot of these same sins, but just not quite as bad. Like, okay, I don't find the characters in two quite as interesting either. So I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit of whiplash on you guys from you guys.
Nostalgia goggles.
One of my early notes on 3 is that I think it's only like 10 to 15% worse than 2 in a lot of ways, but it hits a break point, and the break point is where it goes from charming to annoying. And it's like you once you cross that, you lose me.
Lancelot is played by Jim from The Office. I didn't know that until this watch.
Really?
Krasinski.
JK.
Yeah, it doesn't have a good villain. All the villain scenes suck. And it's just like everything is a downgrade. It's a lot of the same of Shrek 2, but it's a downgrade. Arthur is a worse character than the parents are, and like all this analog characters are just worse.
I don't like the Queen in 3 either. She can just spontaneously smash her head through walls to.
Oh, you
That was kind of dumb.
didn't like that bit?
She did it twice in a row. Yeah, didn't make
Uh,
any sense.
I remember in Shrek 1, Fiona frames it like she's good at karate because she lived alone and trained herself. Then I guess her mom is the one who taught her. I don't know.
Yeah. Brian did say that to me.
Well, see, okay, so my devil's advocate theory is that she inherited the smooth green skin from her frog dad, and maybe the monster strength comes inexplicably from the mom. There's this gag visual. I mean, I don't know if it's even a gag, but they spend a lot of time on it of Shrek and Fiona in the clothes that they'd have to wear if they were king and queen, even though the king and queen that we know didn't wear those clothes. And it's like, the like Regency era, or I don't know, like George the Third, like froofy fop dandy clothes, and that they're awkward to wear and stand around in, and they can't really move or do any of the things that they like to do. And so they're awkwardly like hobbling around for a while in these froofy clothes. And I wasn't laughing, but like it's representative of the movie as a whole. It's like this whole thing is shambling around awkwardly and uncomfortable.
All right. I have an important question and topic. The donkey dragon babies.
Dronkeys.
Dronkeys? Is that what they're called?
That's the
Yeah.
canonical term.
All right. So, how? Biologically.
He crawled up in there and
He did his thing.
He crawled up in there. Okay.
Episode break. There we are.
Nah, I don't know, man. Donkey's got it going on, I guess.
Okay, so Dan, realistically, much easier than the other way around. If you
True.
had giant sire dragon and small birthing donkey, very much a more difficult prospect.
Yeah, yeah, that's you know what, that's fair. It did have me wondering a little bit about what the Fiona curse does to the genome of Fiona. So does she have like different DNA when she transforms and untransforms? Could an ogre breed with a human, or did like Shrek? Back to your point, like oh man, it's good that he like happened to bump into a
The one
Uh,
ogre lady.
yeah that like they wouldn't have been able to produce a baby.
Well, they kind of talk about it a little bit in Shrek 2, because at one point the king asked whether they're babies, and Shrek was like, yeah, they'd be ogre babies. But how the hell does he know? I guess so that means that either being an ogre is a dominant gene, or her transformation is down to the DNA. Those are, I guess, our two options there. It's not like a superficial transfiguration, but rather something that goes way into her cells.
Yeah, this is where we're gonna drop in the supplemental media the Shrek's Mint Ogre Load McFlurry.
Okay, hold on.
From a promotional tie-in with McDonald's.
Can you explain the connection there?
Is it because the it looks like well go ahead. Let's hear Brian explain it.
Shrek Spunk.
Okay. That's what I was
Oh,
thinking.
it's the Shrek
We're
jizz.
talking about the gametes here, the genetic transference.
Yeah, and it's in a McFlurry. That's the answer.
Yeah, it's his Mint Ogre Load.
Jesus.
Ogre load.
Ogre load. Man, that's a good question about Shrek.
Oh, hey, hold on. No, it's not. Okay, let's be clear. It's not.
Let me ask you, so is the dragon a mammal too? Did the dragon give live birth to the babies, or did she lay eggs? The Dronkeys.
See, that's the problem with her not going on the quest in Shrek 2 is she's separate totally for the whole thing. And so we don't have answers to these questions.
Except for the monstrosities that we witness in Shrek 3. I guess they appear at the end of Shrek 2.
I have a similar question.
Okay.
If Shrek impregnated Fiona before they had their true love's first kiss, could it have been a hybrid human ogre, or like 1/4 human, 3/4 ogre baby
Oh, man.
instead of entirely ogre babies?
Well,
Are
hold
you
on.
s-
We already kind of have rules for this.
Oh,
because-
the question. If she had gotten pregnant before the curse was lifted, would the baby in utero transform with her between
No, I was thinking about that as well.
well,
Yeah,
hold
that's
on.
that's what I'm wondering is are you suggesting, Andrew, do you believe that that's what happened? Had he already impregnated her before the end of Shrek 1?
Yeah, what would the seed turn into when she transforms?
Hmm.
We know, by the way, the entirety of Shrek from when they meet until when they get married, there are exactly 2 nights. It's the night of the
2
third day between they get, because the first night you remember is when she's hiding, when he pretends to roll the stone over, and she's listening to him talk about constellations, and Donkey thinks that the moon is a constellation. That's the moon. And then the second night is in the old mill. At sunrise is when Farquaad comes, and they get married by sunset. So it's 3 days. So I don't think we can understand that there was a moment for them to have conceived a child in those 2.5 nights, or 2.5 days, or whatever.
Yeah, that would be like a Phantom of the Opera sequel aside level
Yeah.
change to make. But it is interesting to think about.
I'm not sure I agree.
I got it. I got a metaphor. The favor that Fiona provided Shrek when he remember the handkerchief. That's a metaphor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a metaphor.
For the
But we kind of have some previously established things, because remember, Fiona's dad is a frog. So
Isn't there a joke in Shrek 4 where Donkey suggests he does not know where babies come from?
I think that might be no, that's in Shrek 3.
Oh, is it
Isn't
Shrek 3?
Yeah, when he's trying to say, no, where does it come from? So Donkey, I guess, conceived children without knowing how it works.
He got up in there, but he still
Yeah.
didn't know what was happening.
It's a commentary on the state of sex ed in Far Far
Yeah,
Away.
he's an animal and he has instincts, but
True.
he never had it explained, the cause and effect.
I mean, the script in Shrek 1 implies that the dragon is grabbing at his dick at the in the hey, what you gonna do with that or
Oh!
whatever he says. Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, in speaking of bad sex ed, I read a book where Francois Truffaut interviewed Alfred Hitchcock, and Alfred Hitchcock shares an anecdote that in his first movie, there's a scene shot in the water, and the lead actress was supposed to get in the water, but she said, I actually can't swim right now because I'm on my period. And he said, what's a period? He had never learned, Alfred Hitchcock growing up had not learned what
Oh my-
women's
wow.
menstruation was. Anyways, and it's in the realm that that Donkey could have not known because Alfred Hitchcock it was missing key pieces of knowledge.
Okay, so I'm glad that you brought up Alfred Hitchcock. I was reading in all the Shrek media that we consumed this week. One of them was Shrek 4D, which was released as Shrek 3D, or if you watch the 2D version, Ghost of Lord Farquaad. Anyway, the attraction at Universal Studios theme park, the location that housed Shrek 4D up until like 2003 when they put that in had been like Alfred Hitchcock's history of the movies, replaced by Shrek 4D, and then replaced 15 or so years later by Minion Mayhem. and just if that is not indicative of
Society.
where the history of film is at, it's
It's really a Shrek 1, 2, 3 for you. I had another. I was starting to think of quibbles I have with Shrek 1 as we were talking about this. Like, do you remember when Fiona catches all of the flies in the spider web and then Shrek eats it like cotton candy? And then she like licks her fingers?
That's good stuff.
Why does she have ogre tastes? I don't get it. Why does she have ogre tastes? Like, I get her being crass or whatever, but like, does her being an ogre at night make it so that she also likes to eat weed rat stew?
Well, that's what's in her soul.
yeah, that's love's true form. She's mostly ogre.
I see.
Sort of frenzy begins when you become an ogre.
I see. It takes over. It's one of those things that once you have the taste of weed rat stew.
It's a Twilight reference.
How do we feel about the ogre babies at the end of Shrek 3?
I thought they were much more involved, like actually being shown throughout the whole movie upon my most recent watch. I think they're very inoffensive compared to what we know they look like now.
I would say of the green babies I've talked about on this podcast, that being the ogre babies and Grinch baby, the ogre babies creep me out less than Grinch baby does
Yeah.
from
Yes.
2001 Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
I agree. The Shrek babies are fine. It's a logical extension of we're seeing the trajectory of Shrek's life. You know, he's welcomed other people in and now he's created this family. So to have a movie that deals with his apprehension about having children, I mean, it's not the worst idea, I guess. I think it's getting more distant from things that a child audience can relate to. But
Yeah.
this isn't just for kids, but it is partially for kids.
The humor undercuts the plot in the third one, whereas the humor aids the plot almost in the first one, is maybe how I would describe it.
I just feel the feelings more in 1 and 2, and especially 1. There's like a warmth and an earnestness that 3 feels hollow to me, and I don't know if that's
I
totally
agree.
warranted, but it's probably warranted. This is jumping back for a second. In 2, there's this shot. It's like a second and a half long, but it's an exterior of the villain bar, and they have the headless horseman being like questioned by the night cops, and he's drunk, and they're making him do the thing where they have to touch their nose, but he's headless. And it's like I had never noticed it before. And just this gag of the headless man touching his non-existent nose for the cops. Very good.
That's pretty funny.
All right, shall we break and then reconvene next week?
I think so.
Probably smart.
All right, see y'all in a week. Take
Have a good
care.
night.
Happy
Bye,
Shrekking.
everybody.
But
If you hear this part of the recording, it's just Will staring at empty chairs. If Brian, if it comes back and we listen to it, I believe I did smash mouths with that girl.